But you'll realize you've been sold when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Feel the dawn of your final day. Feel the fear and go anyway. Get a ride in that big black plane. Kill your conscience and numb your brain. But you'll realize you've been sold when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Cause the wheels already been rolled when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Oh Lord. Do whatever they tell you to. Tell yourself it ain't really you. But when the slaughtering has begun, you'll be murdering someone's son. And you'll realize you've been sold when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Cause the wheels already been rolled when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Oh Lord. Yes, you'll realize you've been sold when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Oh Lord. Cause the wheels already been rolled when you feel the enemy's cold hard steel. Oh Lord. Hey.
Wow. Yo, it's your boy CD, man. Right, listen, obviously Charlie Kirk got assassinated. Oh, music still playing. Keep it professional. Hang on a minute, darling. Can you turn that down just a little bit? Hey, can you turn it down a little bit, please?
Yes.
You want to come and have that argument here? Okay, that's great. Yeah. All right, listen. So that happened, and you know what? I'd woke up for a piss about 4 o'clock in the morning. I put my phone on. What did we do in the toilet before we had iPhones? Fucking weird, huh? Just sort of look at the walls and that, and it was like a dream. It felt like a dream. Now, what I'm not going to do is mourn it right now. What I'm going to do right now is I like Charlie Kirk. I think it's fair to say I watched a bit of him almost every day, like a short or something. Sometimes watched whole videos. And what a fantastic guy. That's all I can say at the moment. Might do something about it in the future, but I think it's too soon to go in deep with the little I know, and I don't want to get into a whole morning session because I think it's kind of a personal thing. But what I have got for you is something awesome. Let me know in the chat if you know a channel called Dad Saves America. It's kind of, I had this planned actually a while back, but well, not that long back, like a week or something. It seems kind of fitting because Dad Saves America, his channel originally, well, I'll tell you what, I'll read what he says. He says, this is part of his description, and it's in all his videos. Dad Saves America explores the philosophies and practical steps needed to raise capable, curious, independent adults, excuse me, who are ready to thrive in a virtuous, free society and want to keep it that way. So that was his original angle, and he's pretty much sort of stuck to that. You know, his videos are kind of about what's going in the ears and eyes of young people, what's coming out of the mouths and other expressions of young people, and where is that essentially problematic, where's that positive, and what can we do about changing that. In truth, the quality of his channel is so good, a little bit like Warren Smith. You know, I've made a load of videos using Warren Smith's videos. Sorry, I haven't been doing any videos for the last week. This novel, I'll knock out 100,000 words in 7 or 8 weeks. I can do it. So I tried to do that. I've done it, and I thought, wow, and it's excellent. It is excellent. I think that I wouldn't have kept writing it. But man, my body, it was like my body was going, go on, you can get there, you can get there. You know, I only need to do a little bit of fiddling with it. But once I'd got the sort of the heavy lifting done, my body went, no, you ain't doing anything. And this week, oh man, I had to do a live team event. I can't, because I signed NDAs and all that luck, but I'll tell you now, and this is kind of cryptic, but you'll work it out. I can guarantee 100% that you've used this company's product today. That's how big they are. And I had to do a live event to their government executive affairs committee. Now, as someone who's previously been a comedian, okay, but you know, I'm just a bloke in a room, and there's just these very highly intelligent and successful people. It's a little bit stressing, and work. You know, the way the mega markets are crushing independence at the moment, it's just like all the way. So that's why I haven't streamed all week or anything like that. The missus goes to the province for there's a big Cambodian celebration. It's already started, and that's going to give me about a week where I can get this manuscript finished, and it will be available at the latest November. So I'm over the moon about that. Right, let's oh good Lord, I haven't even started the grift, and there's donations coming in. Before we do the donations though, let's press the magic button and welcome your friend of mine, the true host of the show, Picard. Hello son.
All right, can you hear me?
How are you? I can hear you all right.
I had an abscess last week from Friday till Tuesday.
An abscess? What, in your mouth?
Yeah. Lovely. I was in absolute agony. Yeah,
awful.
And it was lovely.
Did you have to get dental treatment, or did you just get a screwdriver in there?
I winged it.
Yeah. Sometimes best way to do it. It's lovely though, isn't it, when it goes?
Yeah.
And then you just go. Like,
My face is still bruised from it. It bruised my face. It bruised my cheek, but on the inside.
There you go, people. Packer's internal oral bruise story was his opening gambit on your Friday evening stream. Wow. If anyone's got anything hideous they want to share in the chat, now's your chance.
I've buried 2 ferrets as well. It's been a great week.
Oh, 2 of your little ones have gone, have they?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you just said that. So, okay.
They weren't alive. It wasn't like that.
That's an important point, actually. Important point. Well, I will thank Mr. Ravenscroft, who dropped a 10 bob. It's more than 10 bob, isn't it? 10 quid super sticker. Thank you, Brian. Very, very appreciative. You haven't seen you around in a while. Literally on the manor. Fused has dropped a Lady Godiva. Oh, did Brian say anything? No, it was just a super sticker. Fused has said, glad to see you. Oh, where is it? Glad to see you, mate. Been missing your streams. I haven't done any this week. It's been hectic at work and me not having any life left in me. Terrible, horrific news. Train stabbing incident is really upsetting for a lot of people. Yeah, that And you know, we know the subtext isn't the subtext, is it? It's right on the top of what's going on in that train stabbing. But of course, that doesn't get a mention. You're not allowed to talk about that aspect of it. But there you go. Nice one, John. Appreciated. LC 350 drops a tenner. This is incredible. 3 donations before I've even cranked up the grift engine. Nice one, LC 350.
Good night, everyone.
Did you see? Did you see the latest lockpicking legend video? Oi, this company that I've done this live event for this week. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, John Fused, and thank you, LC350. That's Machano, Capriccionata Tutu. I'll have a look at the other ones just quickly, see if anyone's got any early ones in. I don't want them to feel unsupported. It would appear we are all clear there. Right. Hang on, just waiting for entropy. Yeah, we're good. Right. So the grift. At the top of the YouTube stream, you've got buy me a coffee, probably the best one to use. You will get your moment on the screen. I just copy it and paste it and give you wonderful 1970s effects of it. Entropy is also up there, another good one to use. And then you've got super chats at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or you can just wave your phone camera above that. There you go. That what's it called? A QR code. That QR code that Packer's pointed out. And you get a video reply from me, 30 whole seconds. It's not one that's already made. Oh no, they're great. I'm usually like, it's usually post stream, and I'm like, oh, thanks. It was great having you on. And also, it rarely uploads the first video, so the video you get is like the 8th take. So the first one, I'm all like, oh man, you were well funny in the chat. I think it was a good stream tonight. Anyway, enjoy your weekend, mate. Have a good one. This video failed to upload. Retake. Hello, mate. Thanks for the donation. Much appreciated. I think it was a good stream tonight. Anyway, have a good weekend. This video by number 9. Hello, mate. Nice one for that. I think it went all right. Ta-da. So if you do get a sense of sort of a loss of motivation and care in the world, it's just a software problem that I just can't. I don't know how to deal with it. If you do donate using Entropy or buy me a coffee, let me know in the chat, because Packer will tell me. Then I'll be able to make sure you get your moment of glory. Right, what we're going to look at then is Dad Saves America. So this is one of those weird sort of double reactions. This is what I've been doing. I've done it a lot with Warren Smith. But this is with... what's his name? Patrick Bet David. Now, I know a lot of people seem to not like Patrick Bet David. Very successful entrepreneur. Got a very successful YouTube channel. Seems to know his stuff. But what I like about this, and I've only seen a few minutes, it's it's an hour video. But with me gabbing, we'll probably not get more than halfway through it. But that's all right, because I'll leave a link and you can go and watch the whole thing. But older Dad Saves America knows his communism, and that's brilliant. So what we've got is what's his name? Patrick Bet David. I'll call him PBD, all right, because Patrick Bet David every time is a mouthful. It's Jubilee again. The bloke sits in the middle, and they all sit around him, and then he puts a premise or a hypothesis or something forward, and then someone comes in and they all challenge him on it. Now, this video is called What PBD's Jubilee Debate Exposed About Modern Communists. And as someone who was once a communist myself, he's not wrong either. I mean, the original video wasn't called that, but these people are communists. Their ideas are communist. And they're being pumped out of the education system. It's not an accident. And as someone who spent, I can never remember, it was 7 or 8 years in liberal arts, there's a bit of philosophy at the masters at the end. But I'll tell you now, that's what those places are. They're turning young people into communists. Thankfully, most people leave uni, start working, start paying taxes, and miraculously their politics rapidly change. Not all of them, though. So I think this is going to be a cracking video. Dad Saves America knows his stuff, but what I don't want to interpret this for you. This isn't going to be so much a body language, micro expressions, psychoanalytic video. Well, I say that, but it might be a bit, because if you see it, say it. Do you remember that London Underground advert? If you see something suspicious, call this number or something. If you see it, say it. What is that? Like, so if I see a bag on its own with like a battery and a wire hanging out, if you see it, get the fuck out of there. Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. Hello, yes, what line are you on? No, listen, love, you got about 5 seconds. I'm out of here. Yes, can you give me your name, please? Tick, 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 tick. All right, let me tell you this, right? Being someone who has used quite a lot of hypodermic needles in my life, very occasionally you'll get a bad batch, and 2 bad batches. The only 2 actually that I can remember was one bad batch where they wouldn't push. So the inner circle, was just a bit too big. I mean, you could, if you really, it would sort of, not the spike. I mean, the actual syringe. It was, and it wasn't because there was an air blockage. It was just badly sized. And you don't want to be really pushing when you're in a vein, because it might suddenly go. Oh, it gives me the shivers these days. But the other batch, they had no chamfer on them, which means they weren't spikes, they weren't sharp. So they were just like tubes. Like, it was like, why is this not going anywhere? And there was a London bombing years ago that didn't go off. And it said something about the spikes failed to respond to the hydraulic, little sort of mini Lego hydraulic system they had in there, and I was wondering whether it was a bad batch, that the old errorists got unlucky with a bad batch of spikes. Anyway, let's just cut into this as we are. I'm going to just put this back on here. There's this thing on here that I missed last time, and I think I should try and remember it. Give me something like that, I'll ruin it for everyone. Hang on, drop and drag sounds. I haven't got any more sounds for you. Right, here we go then. Let's go. Moslab was here earlier, said he's going to try and make it. He's probably remembered what it's like and done the off. We've got 84 people in. I'm gonna wait till there's 90, because that's a good number. I'm so hot, man. Me and the missus have been arguing about the fan because one of them's holding up the green screen. Souped Up says, hello, Souped Up. I think, are you new here? Lovely to see you. If you are, it'll be my pleasure to welcome you into this community. Because I was naughty at school, I had to go into further education to get some paper. The teachers were the commies, the students were nah. Yeah. All my art school teachers were communists, and my masters, not as much as my master's degree teachers. That was a communist boot camp, and they don't teach you critical thinking about it. They teach you it right. This is what Marx said, and it's right. And if you question that, you don't excel. And the people that don't excel don't move up the ranks. I've talked about this plenty of times. Hello, people. Look, Souped Up has admitted to being new, so say hello to him. Bit of love to Souped Up. Always nice to have some noobs on the firm. When I was doing this chat to this company that, like I said, I know that you've all used today, I said to them about 5 times during the hour presentation, I said, wouldn't it be amazing if you had a YouTube channel and you met people who worked high up in that company and they could just, give you a little foot up on the sly? I just kept saying it. It hasn't happened. Right, people, don't forget you can hype videos. I don't know if you can hype lives. Can anyone in the chat let me know if you can hype this video? Under the like or near it, it will say hype. You get 3 hypes a week. You can use them all on the same video, but I'm not sure if you can use them on lives. Can anyone let me know if you can hype this? I put it on a lockpicking legend video, my other channel, and everyone hyped it. Like, people were hyping it. And it's actually quite a cool thing by YouTube. They're trying to help the smaller channels get a bit more exposure. So if anyone can actually see that, let me know. Maybe you can't do it to live
I just looked, I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find it the other day on your video, but I think it's more to do with my laptop.
Rob D, hello Rob, by the way. Corduroy jackets with sewn elbows, elbow patches, hush puppies and beards. Yeah, that was more your 70s sort of. These days, your educational commies, they're trying to be a bit more sort of with the kids, aren't they? They're trying to be a little bit more cool, like skateboarding into work and the like of that. JP says you can't hype on desktop. Apparently you can. Glass is here. Hello, Glass. Hyper. Can you hype? Emma, can you hype? I only do it because it makes Packer laugh and it makes you drop. AMS hasn't got it. No, not there. Not out in your Finnish ends. Not a problem. The Banksy, we don't know. I don't know where it went. I hear it sometimes, but people tend to use buy me a coffee over entropy these days. So maybe that's it. But when I do get an entropy, I hear it. It might be a button I pressed on the older microphone or something. I don't know how any of this stuff works. Right, here we go. 88 people. That'll do. Let's get into this. So this is Dad Saves America. Look at that, 22 minutes I've been gabbing. That's not good. Like the video if you can. And will I need my headphones? Probably not. Let me know if you get an echo, but we should be all right. Dad Saves America and 20 students. They don't say they're students. It's just meant to be. They don't say they're commies. It's just meant to be a debate. And also, Dad Saves America has edited this. Yeah. So he hasn't. And you're going to get a little hook at the beginning, which is a few sort of best bits. But you're not going to have to sit through the whole thing. Here we go. Roll VT.
I would argue that governments have actually lifted the most people out of poverty. If you look historically, we look at China, for instance, had the most significant poverty reduction in all of human history. They pulled 800.
It's incredible to say that China pulled one of the most, they pulled so many people out of poverty. Well, it's not so hard to do that if you've already killed a third of them. If you've got a family of 4 and you're struggling to feed them, and 2 of them disappear, well, they're feeding their kids twice as much as they were last week.
100 million people out of poverty.
This is the government receding. That is not the government made China rich. That is the government enslaved the Chinese people. And then when it finally started to back off, human nature, creativity, and capitalism unleashed actual prosperity. Hey there, friends, fans, and foes of Dad Saves America.
I know he comes across as a bit of a chump, but trust me, the geezer's excellent.
John Popola here, and I wanted to take this Friday to talk about communism, and specifically explore it through the lens of the young adults that debated Patrick Bet-David at Jubilee, this sort of surrounded series where you frankly get a particular approach to discourse, the efficacy of which is up for debate itself. But I think...
Yeah, I talked about that on the last one, the whole running to sit on the chair first. That's is that necessary? But whatever. But the thing is, it's really popular. Every single Jubilee video, it's the surrounded, because they're surrounding the one person who's got opposing political views to the people who's surrounding them. every single video's got about 100, 200 people in the comments going, why do you always have to have them sitting around it? Or you can question it and judge it and tell them not to do it. But when it's getting an average of 3.5 million views per episode, I think they're probably going to stick with the format.
Serves as a really great way to explore these ideas and some of the problems with them. But let's start off with definitions, because one of the most difficult parts of this kind of debate is that everyone seems to have a different definition of socialism and communism. Let's hear what the
Arklow has said, for the attention of Messrs. Dangerfield and Picard, I'm having dinner and can only lurk. We'll try and get involved later. I do like the idea of Arklow out with his missus. Like, what a lovely rosé, dear. And he's got his iPhone like down in between his legs and he's just sitting down there. Like, he's managed to make a donation already. He said, love, are you sure you don't need the lav or something quickly? Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Brian's dropped another 10-bit and he said, 88, good number, steady. You'll get me in trouble, people. Lol. I always seem to be working, so I miss your streams. I haven't done one I think I've done 2 or 3 last week, but when the missus goes away and I get the manuscript finished, I'll probably be streaming, if not every night, every other night, and probably doing those day chats as well, because I simply get more time because I don't have to do stupid things like sleep and eat. Nice one, Brian. Much appreciated. Nice one, Arklow. Much appreciated. This is quite important, actually. Pags has been watching some old Three Stooges. They bring tears to me eyes, Pags. They're on a channel, it's called something like uncensored.com or something in it. Something like that, uncensoredtv.com, I don't know. But Hugh is just on fire, isn't he? Right, this is important at the beginning because he does define some terms that we are going to get into. So check it.
The Surrounded Circle has to say.
I think we are just trying to advocate for basic rights for our people in this country and across the world, of course. But I don't think it's necessarily about equal wealth disparity around the world for most people that are anti-capitalist. I think it's more about just standard rights that are provided by the government.
So before we get into this, it's interesting. Jubilee actually refers to these people as anti-capitalists, capitalists. But there's not many other options apart from communism. I suppose you could chuck anarchism in there, but, that's a little bit of a laughing stock, really. I would debate that with someone, but nonetheless, I'll take it back a bit for context. This bird comes back later, and I've got a lot to say about her.
Necessarily about equal wealth disparity around the world for most people that are anti-capitalist. I think it's more about just standard rights that are provided by the government.
Standard rights that are provided by the government.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Socialism is a big part of it is going to be workers owning the means of production.
Okay, so to you, that's the definition of...
That bird just said standard right. It's not about this, it's not about that, it's about standard rights given to you by the government, and he just goes, great.
Is a big part of it is going to be workers owning the means of production.
Okay, so to you, that's the definition.
As soon as I hear things like means of production, it just, I've said these phrases so many times without cringing, being very serious to people who've worked hard all their lives as well. The cheek of it. I haven't talked to people like PBD, but I spoke to people in bars who, near broken their backs, their bodies have changed shape through, decades of toil to feed their families. And I'm there talking about, well, when the workers seize the means of production, and I look back and I can remember the amount of people who said to me, they said, you're a dreamer. You're just a dreamer. And I'd be like, well, you got to do better than that. When actually they haven't, because it's so pathetic. It's so hollow, as you'll see.
Definition of socialism.
That is a core tenet of it.
What else would you define as socialism? I'm curious.
There's a lot of different things. It's like Zeno was touching on as well. Moneyless, stateless classes society. But I think more important than not, workers owning the means of production and workplace democracy.
Are you more socialist?
They're the same term, man. Marx used them interchangeably.
Quite an interesting little point there. Can you hear that fan? If that fan's hitting my mic and making it go, let me know. The fan will be going on and off because it gets too hot and too cold. But listen to him. stateless, cashless. So let me give you a little basic, and again, this is just the hook at the beginning. That we'll get longer sort of back and forths in a bit. This is just a bit that Dad Saves America puts at the beginning to hook you into watching a video. But stateless is the important bit, because in a communist revolution, they talk about this thing called the transition period. So there's the reification of class consciousness. That's the making real of the class the working class people. The woke just changed that for minorities. It sort of gets a bit complicated because there's so many areas I could go. When in Marx said that capitalism, as we know it, was part of the sort of epistemological arrow moving through history that will lead inevitably to communism. You know, it's not necessarily in opposition to it. It's part of the process required that humans had to go through to become men at the end of history, and then employ the communist utopia. But that didn't work. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. So that's where you get the likes of the Frankfurt School come from. And they were like, well, look, the problem is Marx totally underestimated the growth of mass media and the power of culture. That's why Stuart Hall, Edward Said, all that crowd, that lot from the Birmingham School, the Birmingham School for Cultural Studies, which is ideologically an ideological reflection of the Frankfurt School. It was Marx misunderstood underestimated the power of mass media and underestimated the power of culture. We always hear that politics is downstream from culture. What happens culturally affects politics, not the other way around. So they talk about this thing you just said, stateless. So what they say is that there'll be a reification of class consciousness. The working classes, or in the woke version, minorities. So sexual deviants, different races, different creeds. Anyone they can just, you're being oppressed. The white man hates you. Join our gang. They're gonna give us loads of money. They'll be working for us soon. Which you could call slavery. I mean, it's weird. I was thinking the other day, reparations is a form of slavery, which is kind of ironic. So what they're going to do, they're going to rise up. So you get the reification of class consciousness, and then they rise up and they overthrow the government or the king or the queen, as it used to be in those days. And then you form a government, and that's the state. But communism is a continual revolution. It doesn't stop there. You don't have a communist government, because that is by definition not communist. That's not the workers owning the means of production. That's a state organizing the people to its own ends. So they talk about a transition period where the state dissolves and the people in their communes get on with life, and everything's dandy. I look historically at every single communist revolution, and that didn't quite happen ever. That has never happened. It's never reached the transition period, because you need the kind of people that lead these communist revolutions. They're our dark triad people. They're manipulative, psychopathic narcissists, and once they've got the power, they ain't getting rid of it. Not a chance. They might make it look like they have. Oh no, it's all democratic, blah blah. But we know what goes on behind closed doors. And I tell you what goes on behind communist closed doors. Well, they eat their babies and things because they're hungry.
What else would you define as socialism? I'm curious.
There's a lot of different things. It's like Zena was touching on as well. Moneyless, stateless, classless society. But I think
cashless, moneyless. I haven't heard any commie explain why that's a good thing, but it comes up a lot.
More important than not, workers owning the means of production and workplace democracy.
Are you more socialist?
They're the same term, man. Marx used them interchangeably.
And real quick on that. So this notion that Marx used the term socialism and communism interchangeably is not exactly right.
It is, though. I disagree with Dad Saves America on this point. He does. He certainly does in Das Kapital. He certainly does in the Communist Manifesto. There will be times where he'll define them when it suits him. As a, it's almost that transition period, but he does. But because damn, this gets confusing. You've got to remember that ideology, when we talk about ideology, we're talking about a belief system. We're talking about like values and behaviors, ways of doing and ways of thinking. And Marxist writer Louis Althusser, in his book Essays on Ideology and Essays on Ideology and Ideological State Apparatus, he defines ideology as your artificial relationship with the actual conditions of production, which is fine. I buy that. I think that's a sensible way of defining what an ideology is. The problem is you can also apply that to Marxism, and so what the Marxists do is, and Althusser tried it, Marx and Engels certainly tried it. Oh no, Marxism isn't an ideology. Marxism is a science. Now that sounds weird, doesn't it? But that most orthodox communists will tell you that Marxism or communism, doesn't suffer the issue of ideology and your artificial relationship to the actual means of production, because it's not an ideology, it's a science. And I've read enough Marx to know that it's far, far from a science.
And communism interchangeably is not exactly right, but I do think I certainly look at it as if you believe we should abolish private property and have collective ownership of the means of production, you're basically in communism.
Yeah, that's 100% communism. I think it's a second line in the Communist Manifesto. You can define communism in one line: the abolition of private property. That's it.
And whether you're in communism or socialism, as it's defined by our favorite bearded...
There it is, the Communist Manifesto.
Weirdo, our favorite moocher. Charitable right from the start. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Well, that is often a little more like semantics, but
I also disagree with him here. When people say, oh, now this is just semantics. Well, semantics is to do with words and meanings. When people accuse you of saying, if you're having a debate with someone and they go, oh, that's just semantic. Well, all debate is semantic. So I don't know. But he's great in the rest of the debate. But I have to call him out when I don't agree with him. Otherwise, I'm just, hey, partisan, our side.
Let's keep going.
Socialism is social or collective ownership by the workers or a community of the means of production, right? So we're talking about like city-run grocery stores, or we're talking about worker cooperatives, or even in some cases, credit unions, where a local community owns the bank that they take part in, right? That's what social...
Does it not all sound sort of not only politically, but emotionally immature? You know, you're looking at organizing very complicated societies that require, there's so much going on, so many micro exchanges going on that create the whole. And then you get these people talking about cooperative farms. I mean, look what happened in Seattle with, what was it called, Slag or something, where they had their little bit of land that they took over, and within about a week, there was just a gang with AK-47s saying, this is our land now. And, the fact they can just trot this stuff out, and the speed and the rhythm, the cadence of the voice, these geezers and it usually is geezers, but I'm sure Jubilee, got a 50-50 split because of woke or whatever. You hear them in student bars doing this to girls, and you just look at the girl, and she'll sort of look at you, and you're like, "Yeah, man, you got a communist. It's your turn tonight." Let's just hear him say that again, and just check out the speed, the confidence, the cadence. He doesn't want that bloke to interrupt and actually, PBD to come up with any answers. It's just a tsunami of like Marxist idioms that he's repeated and had repeated to him, possibly for the last 10 years of his state education.
Is often a little more like semantics, but let's keep going.
Socialism is social or collective ownership by the workers or a community of the means of production, right? So we're talking about like city-run grocery stores, or we're talking about worker cooperatives, or even in some cases credit unions, where a local community owns the bank that they take part in, right? That's what socialism is. Socialism is not when the government does stuff for you. It's not when they build roads. That happens under capitalist economies. That happens under socialist economies.
So this is an interesting definition. He's, I think that's got some nuance and accuracy. The problem is, under a capitalist society, you can have, and we do have, worker-owned enterprises. That's not an ism. We have REI. It's a cooperative. That's just free enterprise. That's just capitalist acts between consenting adults. I don't think this definition is fair. This definition treats socialism.
It's a really good point, actually. The idea that workers' cooperatives is communist. I mean, sure, they could exist, I guess, if the Stasi let you, but that they do occur today. There's plenty of workers' cooperatives. It's like, wow, your revolution's really the same. You want to rise up and make things the same. What a revolution that would be.
Like just a business model, when in fact it is a worldview about how a society should be structured. So I think this guy is a little off the mark here, but at least he doesn't, think that just because you have a fire department run by your city government, that is sort of mini socialism, and why not go the whole way? He's sophisticated in that way, more so than, say, Michael Moore in his movie Capitalism, a Love Story.
When you said capitalism is the best form of economic organization the world has ever seen, it made me think of a very particular picture from history. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know this, it's a little history lesson. In 1900, King Leopold II.
It's an awful thing. I don't know if you know, a little history lesson. What, to someone like PBD? It's condescending, and it's condescending because they are brainwashed by this stuff. They are indoctrinated. There's no chance that they're wrong. They go here thinking that this bloke is not only wrong, but he's evil. There's blood on his hands. They believe this zero-sum game nonsense, that for him to be rich and to have made millions, he's taken from loads of other people and stopped them getting rich. Whereas the truth is he's actually employed thousands of people and created things, made things that has helped the economy grow and continue. A little history lesson for you. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know this, it's a little history lesson. In 1900, King Leopold II of Belgium determined that the entire land of the Democratic Republic of the Congo was his personal property. And within 10 years, capitalists came out. They exploited all the land, extracted trillions of dollars.
This is it. I haven't seen any further than here, but this is already ridiculous, because he's talking about overthrowing King Leopold of Belgium. I'm not quite sure if the aristocracy, when the aristocracy is the state, is that capitalism? He's just giving an example of something else. Okay, weird.
Dollars of resources, 15 million Congolese died. For reference, the Holocaust killed 6 million people. And the most famous picture from that time in history is a rubber worker staring at the disembodied hands of his 8-year-old daughter, because he didn't.
Just an appeal to emotion. So there's a photo of someone who had their hands chopped off for whatever reason. you know, just have a look at any historical texts of any communist state, and you can find millions of these things, you know, literally millions of bodies piled up. And this bloke is trying to change this geezer's mind by saying there's a photo of some young girl starving or whatever.
Hit his rubber quota. I'm willing to bet that man worked harder to hit that rubber quota than anything you've ever worked for in your entire life. And I think when you say this is the best system that's ever been created, to me, that's the result.
I've encountered this type of argument too. I interviewed Richard Wolff, sort of Marxian economist at the New School years and years ago. And he plays this game, which is to say anything that's not communism is capitalism. So the king doing stuff can be capitalism. If the king is doing it, isn't the king government? This is where we get into, again, this no true Scotsman type fallacy. If it isn't perfect communism, which has never been tried, then it's capitalism. And anything that has private property at all is capitalism, including kings. But here comes probably, this is a recurrent person on Jubilee, and she offers, I think, a pretty pointed vision of this that I think is the most Marxist and the most accurate to where this stuff goes.
I think it's super important here for all leftists alike, but
right, again, check out the speed, check out the cadence. It's like advertising. You know, you can go to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, and you can be sitting in a bar, you could be in a taxi, anywhere, and you can hear someone on the radio, and you can tell when it's an advert. Like if it's just the DJ, or do people still say that? If it's the presenter sort of talking about something that's going on in the local area, but when it's something goes, you sort of know the rhythm and cadence of advertising. And what's advertising trying to do? It's trying to nudge your logical brain out the way and hit you in the emotions. And you can do speed, not amphetamines, but speed, pace, rhythm, cadence are all ways of doing that. And she's learned this. Now, they wouldn't have sat her down and said, right, listen, when you're arguing with a capitalist, talk really fast, don't take breaths, just keep throwing it at them. They wouldn't have done that, because that would expose them as having technique, like that woman we watched in the video a while back. And then any student with an IQ of over 100 would go, well, what this sounds like you're talking rubbish then. Why would we have to do this if we had an actual point? The reason she can do it is because it's been done to her. This is our lecturers talk to her, and have been for probably the majority of her education.
Where this stuff goes.
I think it's super important here for all leftists alike, but for the audience in general to define what these terms are. I think the best way to do it would be to look at the theorists, right? Over history, we've seen communism and socialism talked about by governments and by, I guess, programs, but we never actually read the actual theory. And
So far, I'm out of breath listening to her. So far, she said we should read the primary texts. Now, I've done that so you don't have to. There's 3 volumes of Das Kapital, and there's 4 if you include surplus value. It's not an entertaining read. It's really not fun.
Theorists all agree on is that socialism would be.
Hang on a minute. Starry Ray, are you new on the firm? Nice to see you, Starry Ray. Say hello to Starry Ray, people. Maybe you're not new. Maybe you've been lurking all this time. But it's always nice when people introduce themselves. It's my honor to welcome you into this wonderful community. Hello, John. Hello, JP. Hello, Pizzle. Lovely. Look, he's still at it. Oh, art clothes ruining his missus' Saturday night dinner. I appreciate it. Oh, you've just been away for a while. Not a problem. I get sick of myself as well. I have to take breaks. Here we go. Back to Rambler.
A transitionary state between capitalism and communism.
There you go. The transitional state.
agree on is that socialism would be a transitionary state between capitalism and communism, where the means of production are specifically owned by workers, not privately. The idea that any country now is anywhere near socialist, let alone communist, would simply be ridiculous and just
thank God for that.
It wouldn't reflect theory whatsoever.
What is the definition of communism to you?
Stateless, moneyless, classless society.
And you prefer that?
Yeah. So I think that we should be moving towards,
communism.
Yeah. Stateless, moneyless, classless society.
Stateless, moneyless, classless society. This is, in the fully realized Marx. The Communist Manifesto is not his complete works. He wrote a lot, including Das Kapital. But basically, what he's fundamentally arguing for, and what all of the other sort of truly socialist thinkers ultimately point towards, and it's only a question of the speed and the strategy, is a world in which there is no private property. There is just collective ownership, but that means we all own it, which also means no one owns it. But they believe you can achieve a utopia in which there is no class, which is to say there is no inequality of any kind.
Which is to say that all men are created equal. That is just, if you're going to have this sort of classless, whatever class, but hang on, some people are stronger than others. Some people can lift more. Some people can work more. So if you're working and you're working really hard and you happen to be able to lift more bales of hay or smelt more bronze than someone who's lazy, who doesn't want to do it, and they're getting the same amount of food as you. I'll tell you a story. This is a famous, very famous story. There was a commune in China. And, right, I have to go back a bit here. In Marx's theory of capitalism, there's a thing called alienation. Well, there's a thing called alienation, and he attributes it to loads of different things. But probably, and this is only my opinion, the most significant one is alienation from labor. And there's a sense of truth to it. Like if you were painting the walls of your house, and you only had to do it once when you moved in and you built your house, you're probably going to do a better job of it than if it's your job to paint thousands of the same houses on housing estates every day, get there, same colour, same wall, same shape, same house, get back. So Marx said you're alienated from your labour because you're not getting the full benefits of it. You're just getting a little bit. It's the bloke who's taken all the risks and raised all the money and works 20-hour days at the top that is getting more money than you. So there was this little crew of farmers, because obviously China was agricultural when Chairman Mao came in with his great leap forward, which was such a ridiculous sprint backwards, it was untrue. But this commune, a few of them got together. Now, this is under the threat of death. You weren't allowed to do things like this because communism had to protect itself from its own internal contradictions. If you got together without the permission of the commune leader, which would likely go to a vote with the whole, you're just not allowed to do those things. Same in Soviet Russia, same in Pol Pot's Cambodia, same in everywhere it's been tried. But they did. They got together and they said, look, let's sign a contract. Let's produce surplus, which is essentially capitalism produces surplus. And they said, that way, if we work really hard, we get up a little bit earlier, we leave a little bit later, and we'll keep a bit, we'll distribute it amongst the 4 or 5 of us, and, we'll have more food to eat because our families are starving. Because the state takes a load of that. The state drives around. This happened in the Soviet Union. It happened in Cambodia. It happened in all of them because it has to. Right, again, Mises. What's the fundamental problem with communism? If you haven't got a free market, how do you know the value of anything? Markets regulate value. That's literally what they do. They do other things like allow for the exchange of goods, allow for the exchange of labor, allow for the exchange of money, but they also regulate the value of things. You know, who tells you how much A is worth or B is worth? Who does that? Well, the markets do, because people will pay a certain amount of money for something. If you haven't got free markets regulating value, you don't know the value of your resources. And it's that simple. If you don't know the value of your resources, how as a government, as a state, do you plan long term? Well, you can't, which is why they always end up eating each other's dead family. Now, so going back from Mises's, yeah, so this little splinter group from this commune, they made this contract. There's a few versions of the story, but they signed it, they put their thumbprints on it, and it was tucked in a box, and the box was buried and all that. And they started overproducing because suddenly they essentially become a little capitalist enclave within this communist system. They didn't have to hand a third of their or half of their produce over to the state vans that come round that went and was dished out to party members who didn't do any farming, you know, didn't lift a spade in their life. And someone grasped on them, and I think they all got killed. But how weird is that? Within a communist system, people realized that they would do more work if they were incentivized to do it, rather than the opposite of being incentivized, being demotivated. Work your ass off, give half of it to us, and starve. It's ridiculous.
There's no money, so there's no medium of exchange or the mechanisms that allow what is currently like a modern society to function. And we're all somehow sort of in utopia. That what she is describing here is the utopian vision of socialism / communism. It's we can achieve post-scarcity, post-humanness. And Marx actually talks about this. He describes a path by which we will escape our sort of materialist, our means, that we are in a sense a product of our economic conditions. That is what Marx believed, that our psychology, our nature is a product of our economic environment. And that if we shed ourselves of this private property thing that makes us greedy and makes us selfish and makes us status seeking.
Yeah, according to Marx, the idea that humans want things isn't natural. That's not anything to do with hierarchies. That's not anything to do with people striving for the betterment of their life. That's capitalist ideology. And again, if you try and return that back to them and say, well, surely what you're talking about is Marxist ideology. No, because Marxism is a science.
We will create a new socialist man. That just because communism, as it has been executed, seems incompatible with human nature as it exists. This Marxist idea of this man who's been freed from the chains of capitalism, that is that end of history. It's I really recommend that book. It's a great read. Francis Fukuyama, it's called. The full title is The End of History. What is it? It might be something like The End of History and the Last Man. And you're freed from the shackles of capitalist ideology, and you're not human, because what has been defined as human is the effect of capitalist ideology on our minds. And it's weird. I don't know if I've pointed this out before, but utopia, the word utopia comes from two Greek words, ou and topos, which means ou means no, and topos, thank you, darling, means place. So utopos means no place. So it doesn't exist. Look what just got put down next to me. Little strawberry cake there. I will be having lumps of that. Thank you, love. Oh, bollocks.
I know there's a lot to take in here, but it's really worth it. That Francis Fukuyama book, The End of History, definitely worth a read, because he brings in loads of stuff about communism as well. And you know, these are our enemies. These people are trying and getting quite a long way. You know, I thought in the early 2000s that communism, Marxist ideology, was a 20th century thing. It was obviously just, you know, it sort of fizzled out, and we'd never hear about it again. And then in the sort of, you know, like 2015, 2014, this sort of resurgence of students saying that they're after a communist revolution. It's like, have you read a book? Do you know what happened in the 20th century? Do you know where the majority of the deaths come from?
He would put forward, if he was sitting here, well, that's because we haven't gotten to the place in this march of history where humanity will have evolved, and it's like Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like, we don't need money anymore. We have evolved our sensibilities. We have the replicator, and we can now be like the Borg, even though, of course, the Borg was an enemy. But of course, in this case, the Borg is the ultimate end. We are all one. We are all the collective. We have a hive mind, and we don't need money. We don't need anything. We don't need status. We're all the same. Of course, you know, even in the Borg, there's the Borg queen, but leave that aside. All right, let's keep going.
You don't think a person like me should exist with the amount of wealth that I have?
Yeah, because I think that we're getting to this point where we're creating fake scarcity for people like you to accumulate the wealth that you have on the basis of private ownership. Okay, so you're not capitalist. You're definitely not capitalist. You're not socialist. You want to go full communism. So what do you think that looks like, though, as a thing, right? So what Marx actually wanted was for us to reach a...
You don't have to look very far.
Point where we no longer have the scarcity of resources that has kind of predicted, you know, history as it looks like now. It wouldn't happen now. It would happen as we automate. At this point in time, we can decommodify housing and food and education.
Decommodify housing. It's almost... that's like a cryptic clue in the Telegraph.
For around 5% of the government budget. That's 1/5, a little bit over 1/5 of what we spend on the military already.
I don't know where she got that number from, but that sounds ridiculous to me.
So a couple quick things on this that are important to pay attention to. This notion of decommodifying essentially all the means of living. Food, housing, and education is already functionally controlled by the government, and healthcare. So all the stuff, all the stuff of life.
All the things, all the things, all the things.
Will decommodify
all of everyone else's things.
Modify it, which is to say, turn it into government-run utilities. This is the language of Zoran Mamdani and this rising class of politicians on the radical left, who are essentially the only people with any juice or energy in the Democratic Party. That's why I believe he is a communist, not a democratic socialist.
I'm absolutely with you on that, Jedi. Me, for other reasons. One, because I've done it. I've spoken like that, using those phrases and terms, and I know why I did it, and it makes me cringe. Thankfully, the older I get, the further away I am from when I was that person. But that's because that's how they're taught. They're taught like that. There's no time to actually think about it, because even the most superficial scratch on the surface of this Marxist ideology, not science, and it just crumbles.
Socialists, these are all, again, like means to an end. And one of the things that is great about Jubilee is they do these little fact checks, and her claim that we could feed everyone for 5% of the current government revenues is ridiculous. As it notes, there's 2.7.
Yeah, look at that fact check. She said, what was it? Hang on. That's brilliant. I mean, I knew it sounded a bit off, but not that much.
Jubilee is they do these little fact checks, and her claim that we could feed everyone for 5% of the current government revenues is ridiculous. As it notes, there's $2.7 trillion in consumer spending on food alone. And, you know, we spend $6.5 trillion a year, but we only take in like a little under $5. So you're talking about more than half of all government revenues would have to go to food. I don't know where she's coming up with this 5%. She thinks we're closer to the post-scarcity society than we actually are. But maybe that's why she thinks we can head towards communism.
We don't, because we were living in the state where it almost seems utopian that things like food and shelter.
First time you thought you wanted to be a communist? How old were you?
Is that a response?
I'm actually
to any
really
of the
curious.
statistics?
It's amazing. You know, I'd love to have some time to sit down with a woman like this, because this is what used to get me, right? People say, well, go on then. How are you actually going to do it? A very basic, simple question. So they say, all right, we chuck out the government, so you can all you hippies can move into number 10. How are you going to impose communism on the people? And you're like, how are you going to make, you know, they're like 16, 17 years old. You're like, how are you going to maintain the military? How are you going to collect taxes? What are you going to do about welfare? Are you going to maintain roads? You know, and you know, who are they counting on to run this show? And if they do find anyone, there'll be psychopathic, manipulative narcissists. They always are. History has shown us that.
Tends to take these conversations to the personal. And I want to come back to that because I think it's actually pretty interesting. And it's why you should watch this, because the way he handles it, I think, is pretty unique. And it's not always all that.
I think it's a great question by JBT to say, how old were you when you got into this? I think that's, and you know, she's like, is that an answer? No, clearly it's a question, but carry on.
Sort of economically oriented, but I think psychologically he's onto a lot of important stuff. One other piece of the puzzle is the representations in this room of what capitalism is are much more incoherent, I think, than their somewhat shared view of socialism / communism. And one guy really sort of laid it out in the most simplistic form and got sort of fact-checked for it.
Capitalism is a system in which all businesses are funded by millionaires and billionaires, investor classes.
So did you get that? Let's just one more time.
Capitalism is a system in which all businesses are funded by millionaires and billionaires, investor classes.
So
what? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Where all businesses are funded by billionaire classes. So anyone watching this who runs a business, do you remember getting your funding? Did you get any billionaires funding you? I fucking didn't.
Capitalism is a system in which all businesses are funded by millionaires and billionaires. So the fact checker noted that 99.9% of businesses in the US qualify as a small business, like we are here, and that the median net worth of self-employed families was $380,000. That's net worth. So what that means is that right in the middle, not the average, but the middle small business owner, entrepreneur in America, his family, his or her family, is worth, after, if you liquidated everything, including their home, $380,000. Now, I've seen stats that suggest that the annual incomes of most small business owners are below the median income of DC bureaucrats. So the notion that we live in an oligarchy, we have big companies, we have problems, we have monopolistic components, most of which are driven by government policy, not free enterprise. But the notion that like capitalism, which is to say private free enterprise based on private property ownership and contracts and people voluntarily exchanging with each other, that's my definition, is the product of millionaires and billionaires, investing in things, and that there's this like expensive and inaccessible means of production that need to be seized. That's like this specter living in the minds of young people,
of children, of intellectually and emotionally immature children. These ideas, I would almost accept it almost from a 13-year-old. I'd understand that, they had this idea that you could rearrange things so that everyone just chipped in and no one owned anything, and it was all, I could almost accept it from someone who was 13. 14, you're pushing it a little bit. If you can play a computer game, you can't believe in communism. You've already proven you've got too much mental agility to actually believe in communism. John Palmer, you make a really good point, and again, it's because it's a belief system and it's their identity. They've made it their identity. People who get over emotional in debates, JBT hasn't, because his identity is other things. It's who he loves. It's what he enjoys doing. Whereas for these people, it's the overthrow of these, like Dad Saves America said, this sort of spectre. It conjures up images of fat cats. In the 70s, all the punks would say, "Oh, the fat cats, bloody fat cats." I mean, what? It wasn't that a cartoon once in the Times? Can you really have a political argument talking about fat cats? So they don't argue in good faith. They don't have a leg to stand on.
Out of college, taught by people that have never created anything in their entire life other than stacks of paper. They are maleducated when it comes to what these systems actually are. But they're closer on communism, and that's understandable because all the schools basically teach communism. One of the assumptions.
Hello, Wolfie.
At the heart of this, and you heard it a little bit there, is that poverty and scarcity are somehow being imposed on the human race, that it is an imposition, it is artificial. And I think when you pay attention to that assumption, it's very telling. We do live in a modern wealthy society. There is a lot of wealth in our society, but there's an assertion of rights and of scarcity being imposed, and then the need to work being essentially like forced upon people by.
I've been in communists with the Revolutionary Communist Party of Great Britain, and you get noobs come in. And they literally think that the idea that they have to work for a living is capitalist ideology. They will tell you that. Now, the weird thing is, so do the people who know Marx inside out, but they know that you can't say that because it's embarrassing. But there are absolutely people out there, and they're taught this by their Marxist professors, that you shouldn't have to work for a living. We live in a green and pleasant land where you should just be able to pick an apple and just go and chop a cow's head off and have a nice barbecue. There's no need for work. Work? What century are you living in? 42 drops a Lady Godiva, hoit to that. And he says, communism is sounding a lot like the rule by divine right system that the Normans brought back here with better people to him. and yeah, I know you're making a joke, 42, but you do hit a very important point. The commies have had an incredible success at marketing their ideas. I mean, look at the reality. I added it all up once, and a sort of a base case scenario, you're looking at about 300 million people either starved, tortured, or murdered by their own people. So this isn't war as such. You could argue it's a war between the transitioning state and the lumpen proletariat, but it isn't really a war. So you see why I'm making that distinction. But 300 million people were starved, tortured, or outright murdered by their own people. If you add up all the commie dictators in history, it's absolutely shocking that on the back of that, you can get people to go to universities, get themselves in debt to like what, $80,000, £60,000 or whatever it is, and get taught that communism is a good idea and you should ruin your life by dedicating yourself to the reification of class consciousness and the uprising of the proletariat. Wow. So you know, I mean, look how many people wear Che Guevara t-shirts. Che Guevara was a homophobe. He was a sexist. He was a racist. You know, everyone in this room, I'll tell you now, based on what I know, which is quite extensive in this example, Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, Stalin. Well, that'll do. They wouldn't have any time for any of the people in this room. They wouldn't. This lot would just be move. Take them into that room there. Yeah, and then follow them in with a couple of automatic weapons. You know, they've got it so wrong. It's like gays for Palestine. Are you fucking joking? Do you understand? Like, I've seen maybe they're AI, but I've seen them for a few years. You know, like people supporting gays for Hamas. Yeah, you've missed something here. You've missed something that's really obvious and glaring. And that, again, that just shows you the emotional and intellectual immaturity of the whole thing and the belief system identity of it. You know, young people are fighting and striving for an identity. They don't know who they are. None of us did. You're 13, your voice breaks, you start growing hairs, and you're starting, I really want to fuck all the time, I can't stop wanking, what's going on? And all this sort of stuff. And you like this music one week, but you played it to another mate and he went, this is shit. And you went, actually, it is shit. Who am I? I've got to take off that Megadeth t-shirt, you know, and all that. And then someone comes along and gives you an entire identity. No, you're a revolutionary. Have you heard of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin? Let me tell you what he done. Have you heard of blah blah blah? Have you heard of blah blah blah? You know, people still buy Che Guevara t-shirts, and that marketing is insane. You know, Ted Loach's Land and Freedom. It's like a. I mean, I won't go down that route. We'll be here all night. Nice one, 42. But without a doubt, the Reds have got their marketing. The proof is in the pudding. The long march through the institutions, not only education. I mean, think about that, people. Step back from it. I always say it, don't I? Critical distance. Our education institutions, the universities, anyone who's around my age or 40 and above, years ago, clever people went to university. You know, one or two from each school. It was like they were plucked out. You're far more intelligent than everyone else. You can go to university, get a BA, get an MA, then get a doctorate, and then you can be a tenured professor because you have stood out above all the others. And we need people like you to teach our youth. Now it isn't like that. We've got blue-haired people that have done a year teacher training, and they're just filling these youngsters' minds with absolute nonsense. And they're our universities. They're our higher education institutions. And a civilization that's got that going on isn't healthy in the slightest. I mean, it's good that it's getting called out, but it's been going on a while. It doesn't seem to be weakening. There's still plenty of protests on campus every week, it appears, about anything that isn't part of what maintains the society we've got. Anything that threatens to destabilize the status quo, they'll support it. And they'll jump from one to the other, to the next, to the other, because they've replaced Marx's class system, you know, the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie. They've replaced that with minorities and people who look like me. Cheers, 42.
Capitalism? that I think is important to pay attention to and think about.
History is a march of progress, right? So there are going to be advancements that we make. Or
that's already a mad assumption. I don't believe in progress in that form at all. History is a march of progress. Just throw that out there. I mean, it's been that's been a long political debate and a philosophical debate for millennia, but just throw it out there. This weird chinless wonder on here, he's on it every week. I think he's one of those blokes who puts a tent outside to get a seat like the old dears do at Wimbledon.
And of scarcity being imposed, and then the need to work being essentially like forced upon people by capitalism, that I think is important to pay attention to and think about.
History is a march of progress, right? So there are going to be advancements that we make, or there's going to be solutions that we make to previous ailments. I'm not saying that capitalism hasn't brought in better things than systems like feudalism or monarchy, but that does not mean that we're at the end of history.
I think incentives are exactly the fundamental problem with capitalism.
Look at him. You know full well, especially the ladies, if you're a party and this one starts walking towards you, oh, hang on, there's my phone. Hello. I mean, and you know, it almost defends phrenology, doesn't it? You know, the shape of your head dictating your personality. You got to ask what come first, the communist ideology or the communist outfit? Do you know what one fit the other one better? I'll take it back so we can hear all his bullshit. This geezer had absolutely nothing to say.
But that does not mean that we're at the end of history.
I think incentives are exactly the fundamental problem with capitalism. Is that you say incentives are what make it.
Yeah, no one wants incentives in life. People should be de-incentivized because that sounds productive.
Work, and I think that's the whole issue, is that the primary incentives are either greed, amass as much personal wealth as you possibly can.
Do you think that's the problem? It's greed?
Yeah, exactly. And like
you're not greedy at all.
And then, like you said, survival.
Yeah.
Right. So the person, working 5 jobs, that they're doing that so they wouldn't want to do that if they didn't need to survive. But that's such a horrible dystopian world to live in. If someone has to work 5 jobs just to survive,
but if you're working 5 jobs to survive, you've made some bad decisions. Maybe just get one job that's better than all of those. Now, I am saying that with a slight amount of tongue in cheek, but there's something going wrong there. I know people who made a fortune pushing trolleys. Remember Harry? Do you remember Harry? Him and Barclay used to knock about together. That was one of his first jobs, and I really laughed at him. I'll tell you who else done that. Tim Davis, the jet pilot. He used to be a trolley dolly as well. And when I said to Harry,
I'll push trolleys for fare.
Picard as well. And I said to Harry, why did you do that? He said, I just needed some money. I said, did it pay well? He said, well, it paid as much as any other job I could have got at the time, because he was like 16, weekend job, no qualifications, no life experience. And I think he ended, I can't say too much, but I'll give you a few key words. Trolley dolly, crypto, touring the world. While I've paused it, Rollo has dropped in $4.99. 6 out of 7 of my wife's great aunts and uncles were deported to Siberia in the 1940s. They were hard-working farmers and Baltic fishermen. What, they were just deported? What, for wrongthink and things like that? They were trying to have free conversations, and that's why this whole free speech thing is so important. That was the tipping point in the start of the end of communism, because when people realize that their thoughts are being policed, which is what's happening in England, in the UK at the moment, to a level that is terrifying. What was it? 12,500 people last year went to prison for things they said. I mean, the mind just boggles. But anyway, let's carry on listening to this virgin.
doesn't matter how much onus is on the individual. We want to create a world.
Of course it is.
No. See, we want to create a world
is on
in
you.
which people don't have to earn their right to exist, to live.
hang on. I just want to hear him. I can't believe. How old is this fella? 25, do we reckon? It's got to be something like that. He honestly believes that you shouldn't have to work to live. He wants other people's money. You know, people joke, Margaret Thatcher, socialism's all right until you run out of other people's money. And you say that socialists just want other people's things. They want things for free. But they actually do. This geezer either wants someone else to give him his food and shelter, the fundamentals of living, or he thinks they're just going to come out the ground. Now, admittedly, an apple will. Admittedly, a nice lamb chop might. I mean, you might have to work to cook it, unless you're some kind of lamb sushi eater. But unless that happens, someone else is doing that for you. I mean, what a dreamer. Let's just listen to what he says. Thank you, Rollo, by the way. Let's just listen to what he says. Nice one, Ozmeister. This has put me right off to going to Jonestown. This has put me off going to Jonestown. Nice one, Ozmeister. Hope you're all right, son. Aprasha Kanatu. I'm just going to check over on my stories and my entropy. I hope this geezer gets a bit more time. All right, we're good there. Right, here we go.
It doesn't matter how much onus is on the individual. We want to create a world.
Of course it is.
No. See, we want to create a world in which people don't have to earn their right to exist, to live.
We want to create a world in which people don't have to earn their right to exist. This is an ideology. So let's just look at some basic facts. Human beings are an animal. So we are born and have no capabilities. We are helpless for a really long time. But in a very real...
I didn't even think about that. I forgot. At some point, you're a baby. So someone's got to look after you. That is work. That is labor. That is time and effort. And they've got to feed you. Yeah, you're going to be able to produce milk for a while. But even to do that, you've got to be eating. But this geezer doesn't want that. I bet he hasn't had his mouth on a tit in his life. I'm sorry. But you know, how does he, I mean, this is further out than I ever thought as a commie. You're just sort of born into this sort of utopia. It's just everything's provided. Now, with technology, that could happen. It could get to the point where you don't have to work through robots, right? But at what cost? At what other cost? Because people ain't going to do that for you for nothing, because that doesn't work. There's no exchange there. So let's see how Dad Saves America sums up this tweet.
No capabilities. We are helpless for a really long time. But in a very real sense, we are not born with rights. This is a metaphysical and a philosophical assertion. And it's important to note this because this guy is a materialist. He absolutely despised religion. His favorite phrase was from Faust, that all that exists deserves to perish. It can be argued that he is a Satanist. But one thing he is definitely not.
I mean, I've not heard that before. But without going on a long tirade, anyone here who's read Marx knows he's a Satanist. It's incredible.
Is a God-fearing man. And so the notion that we have inalienable rights or that we have rights at all by virtue of being born is not materialistic at all.
Hang on a minute. Who's Curtis Yarvin? Who is that? Someone tell me who Curtis Yarvin is. It really rings a bell. Crush a grape. I need more info. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, let's see what he's got to say about him.
By virtue of being born is not materialistic at all. So why should one assume, if you are a materialist and an atheist in particular, that we're born into a world where we shouldn't have to work to live? We shouldn't have to exert calories in order to acquire calories like every other animal in the natural world forever. That's not materialism. That's not scientific. It's not biological. It is.
It's science fiction at best, and it's the dream of a child at worst. Or it might be those two the other way around, but either of those are just ludicrous, coming out of someone who's either on a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, or he might even be doing a PhD. And he actually believes that. He believes you shouldn't have to work to live. You just get it all.
Essentially a metaphysical assertion. It is a philosophy. Now you could say, well, this is the moral philosophy of communism, that we shouldn't have to work to live. That is what is being asserted here. It is the right to live on others. That is the fundamental claim of socialism, communism, all this stuff.
And there you go. That's what I said. Yeah. He just wants other people to do it for him. He's lazy. He's just lazy. He's lazy and he's entitled. And what blows my mind is he's happy to say that on the internet, on a show that he knows millions of people, 20, 30 million people will see. He doesn't see anything wrong with that. That's how far shot he is. And I'm going to cut him some slack here. I don't think he was that stupid before he went to university. And not even university now. What in England we call secondary schools. All this stuff is being taught there now. You know, this is the sort of indoctrination secondary school kids are getting. And that poor bloke who went in probably as just an half decent youngster, and now in his mid-20s, he's coming out with some absolute claptrap. Like, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense alongside a communist ideology. It's entitled, it's lazy. And when you talk about greed, is there anything more greedy than expecting other people to provide for you? I mean, it's a slight change of the direction of the word greed, but even if it's not a quantitative difference, the fact is, no, you do it. You do it for me. I'm me. I shouldn't have to work. I should be able to wander through the daffodils with my love. You know, it starts going down sort of late 60s, free love, take drugs, sit around, do nothing, and pray at the end of the week your fucking welfare check turns up from all those people who are out breaking their backs.
Frederick Bastiat said, the state, and therefore socialism and all functional practices outside of utopia, is the fiction by which each of us gets to live at the expense of all of us. And that is the fiction that everyone here is fundamentally living in.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the inalienable rights. We shouldn't have to earn those rights. We shouldn't have to earn the right to health care. Earn the right. No.
I actually,
these are.
We shouldn't have to earn the right to health care. Health care is not right. What kind of society just says, yeah, you're born, you can well look after you? I mean, I know one, it's in a book called Brave New World, but at quite a substantial cost to another element that communists tend to avoid talking about, called freedom.
This is we just want to live, exist.
We just want to watch films and play computer games. Why can't you give me some money? You got loads.
Can't work our
Hang on a minute, look at her in the background. Right, you can't actually see her face, but she's nodding her head. I would suggest that half of the people in that room go along with this, and they're just happy that he's the idiot that actually said it, because, you know, when they change their mind in a few years, they're going to be well glad it wasn't them. But look at her. She's like, yes, I shouldn't. You know, it's my human right to be looked after by other people. It's just fucking mad.
Because we just want to live, exist. We can't work our blood, sweat, and tears.
There you go. Curtis Yarvin, Mulberg, isn't it? The dark enlightenment fella. Yeah, good call. That's why I know it. Class. There you go. We don't want to have to grow up and face responsibilities. Yeah, Emma, you can take off, face responsibilities. He's like Peter Pan. We don't want to grow up. We just want looking after. We want big government. We want, you know, don't forget, these are anti-capitalists. They're not necessarily communists. And this bloke's right out there. This bloke just wants to live in perpetual childhood. He wakes up, his dinner's put in front of him. Once that's gone, that gets washed up. Then his computer game gets put in front of him. Then he gets a bed bath. Then he's carried up into bed. And that's his right. We don't want fat cats running the world. It's absolute madness. Yeah, I agree, Anglo. I think it was a great point. What a weirdo.
Live, exist. We can't work our blood,
yeah,
sweat.
Sorry, I talked all the way over it, but look at her nodding her head in the background. That's right. We want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to get loaded. If anyone can name 2 songs that have used that, I'll give you 20,000 Scrubs points. 2 songs that have used the quote, we just want to be free. We want to be free. I can't remember it now, but you heard it. We want to get loaded. Yeah.
Free to do our thing.
Yeah, that's it. We want to be free to do our thing. We want to get loaded. Yeah. Darling, it's lovely, but I can't eat and talk. It's just all too messy. Can't believe I just turned down a beautiful strawberry. Yeah, good call. There's another one, though. There is another one. There might be other ones. It might. Slayer may have done it. Massive Attack may have done it. There is another one that I know that done it, and it's not either of those. But yeah, and everyone's filling in the gaps now. Anyway, here we go. Let's get back to Child Man.
We just want to live, exist. We can't work our blood, sweat, and tears just to survive. That's a horrible dystopian world that we live in right now.
Then what do you think we're here for? To just sit around and play video games?
He's answering.
Exactly. Cole, hello, Cole. I bet he's vegan. Yeah, tick every box. He's one of those, well, he's probably gone on to Blue Cry now, but he's got every single flag there. You know, he's a beta male. He has no luck with the ladies, so he's just ticking every single box. I imagine you sit him down with a woman, he will have her politics within 5 minutes of hearing what her politics are, like an ideological chameleon. And that's what he is. And, you know, you can imagine him saying this to some 15-year-old fresher, just going, you know, they make you work. You know, that's what these people do. They drive around in their Lamborghinis. They do nothing all day long. And they want you to work to pay for that. Why do we have to do that? And then there's just some 14-year-old on her first acid trip going, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I suppose that is a bit weird. that the next 10 years of her life is going to be scraping the mud out of that trip so she can get back onto the straight and narrow and perhaps enjoy a productive life. Ridiculous idiot.
A good question. Now, okay, to give the devil his due, maybe literally, it certainly doesn't feel right or comfortable or fair to work hard. Many of the people in this show bring up these heart.
Osmeister said, cheers for a donation, mate. Why is he dressed up like a lesbian cowgirl? Well, because it ticks a few more boxes. When he walks into the student bar, you know, when you see him, you know, you get, again, I mean, I know it's a joke, but again, it's his identity. Now, when you see him, you're not thinking entrepreneur. When you see him, you're not thinking of a family man, are you? You're thinking of someone who's turned on, tuned in, dropped out, and expecting other people to pay his way. That's the fourth bit that Timothy Leary never mentioned, because Leary came from money and could always go back there. Tune in, turn on, drop out, go home, get fed. Cheers, Oz. I'll take this back because
examples.
I've interrupted him so many times there.
Do maybe literally. It certainly doesn't feel right or comfortable or fair to work hard. Many of the people in this show bring up these heart-wrenching examples, these sort of stereotypes, like, oh, what about the single mother with 5 jobs? You know, what about her? She's working hard. She doesn't need an incentive to work. The kind-hearted, open-hearted version of this is that, hey, you know, we're not all fortunate enough to be in a position where our capabilities, our backgrounds, set us up to succeed and sustain ourselves. And the opportunities that we're presented with put us in a bind. And that doesn't feel fair, especially in a world where there's millionaires and billionaires.
And the other thing about youngsters, and it took, in fairness, it took me a while to get hold of this. It was like, hang on, why am I working for fuck all? Why are other people, you know, doing jobs and getting paid loads of money? And why am I getting, when I didn't do a lot of work as a youngster, but, you know, I'd be on like $3.50 an hour or something. And I'd be like, this is bullshit, man. That's an hour. And they want me to do 8 of those. Fuck, I walk home with 25 quid. And then, of course, when I got the check from the temp agency, oh, what's this? Pay as you earn tax. Mum, what's PAYE? Oh, that goes to the government. What? Hey. But at the time, because no one taught me any of this stuff, you know, it's like, well, why would anyone pay you money? You don't know anything. You haven't done anything. You know, there's one thing we would pay you a lot for if we needed someone to interview who was an ignorant school leaver who hadn't done much with their life, because that's all you are. You know, you've got to get involved in the labor market. You've got to get involved in the social market. You've got to get involved in being able to bring a bit more to the table. And that's when your wages start going up. And that's when you can start investing, not just financially investing, but investing in yourself, developing skills, getting to a level where you're happy to do that work for that amount of money, because it gives you what you need for what you want in life. I've said this before, but it really bears repeating in this instance. I've got people who work at my company. You've all heard this, but well, maybe some of you haven't. One of them is one of my best mates. He's the only one of my mates I trust with my. He's got the password that opens up all my passwords to everything, because if I was to get hit by a car tomorrow, people would need that sort of thing. And he's the only person I trust with that. There's no one else I trust with that, even other best mates, because I know what they're like. They're like, fucking hell, let's have a look around Dangerfield's emails and all this, right? And I say, you know, he is like he's the beating heart of that business. I said to him once, I said, you know how to run a business, why don't you do it? You know, this was back in the days when it was really going really well, about 10 years ago. And, you know, I was earning a significant amount of more money than him. Not anymore, because the mega markets are chewing up independence. But he just said to me, without even having to think about it, he said, no, he said, I know what time I start work. I know what time I finish work. And that's me done. He said, I know you work till midnight. He said, I used to ring him up about 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, so I'd be talking, when I first set up my business, it was early doors of the internet, and he was a software engineer. So we were already online, dial-up. So there was a real barrier to entry to setting up shops online. You didn't have Shopify and things like that, and Squarespace, where you could just make a website without knowing about coding and things. And so I'd have him around my house like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be going, oh, how do I do this? Let's put this here. How do we put a video of the product on here? And they'd be showing me. And then, he'd go home middle of the afternoon. He had a family. Well, he's still got a family. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm still working. And there's something I can't do. And I'd ring him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he'd be like, what the fuck do you want? And I go, listen, man, I know it's a bit of a liberty, but I really want to get this blah, blah, blah done. And they go, oh, can't it wait? I go, not really, because I'm impatient. I go, I'll tell you what, I got a nice bit of Northern Lights, so they go, I'll see you in about 5 minutes. And they'd come round. So, and a few more examples like that over the years. He knows that being the boss, work never stops. I haven't got a set few jobs to do. Like, take this week. This week has been a nightmare, busy, things needing doing, right? But it's not like I've got A, B, C, D, and E to do. And if I get all of those done, I can just forget about work till Monday. Anyone here who runs a business, let me know in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. It never stops. You never reach a point where you've done all your work. There's always more that needs doing. It just keeps going. And so when I said to this bloke, because he's the beating heart of my company, like, I'd go on holiday for like 11 weeks. I'm going to Thailand for 11 weeks. If you really need me, you can text me or something. And they wouldn't. Because, I wasn't needed for the actual running of the business. My job was marketing, improving it, trying to get more customers and, things that you could stop doing. And so I said to him, you could do it. And he just went, no. Because some people don't want to do that. They're happy to get a wage that suits the way of life they want. And that is because people are different. I don't know why I went up that path. But maybe if I take this geezer back a bit, the context will appear. I think I might have missed a super chat. Hang on. Nope, I did get it. Feel free to donate, people. It would be lovely. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. I don't know how that affects things.
Ourselves. And the opportunities that we're presented with put us in a bind. And that doesn't feel fair, especially in a world where there's millionaires and billionaires and people that make way more money and accumulate way more assets and wealth than they would need. From each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. I mean, it frankly sounds downright Christian, much to the disdain of this guy. Of course, from a Christian perspective, you don't get to point guns at people to do that. You have to be charitable voluntarily. Otherwise, it's not a moral choice at all. The assumption that we are in a post-scarcity world or can live in it is part of where these folks go wrong. We don't live in a post-scarcity world. We live in a world of actual scarcity. This is an instance in which it is true that there is scarcity imposed. And this is housing. Housing is a great example of where we could have a lot more housing than we have, and our houses would therefore cost less because supply and demand. We don't have as much housing as we could have because of busybody government rules and regulations. That's a fact. The kind of path towards bigger and bigger government, the kind of gigantic government that these folks want and advocate for, actually gives rise to more scarcity than we need to have. And it's the mechanism that they understand the least. In fact, to some extent, you could say that Marx had some degree of appreciation for the scarcity busting elements of capitalism, in that he actually believed that capitalism would be the thing that gives rise to the post-scarcity world.
That's what I was talking about earlier, that Marx believed that capitalism was part of that epistemological arrow moving through history, an essential part of history that would be so terrible and awful that we would need communism to save us. And as we know, it didn't quite turn out like that, thankfully. But it just reminded me, that idea that it's not fair. There's people who've got loads of money, and there's me as a 17-year-old getting £3.50 an hour. But okay, Yeah, get used to hierarchies. Get used to people being more successful than you. Get people being more successful than you who don't deserve it. You know, I look at things like the New York Times bestseller list, books, and it's not based on sales. It's a curated list. And I've got a mate, Fat Tony, right? That's his name. Brad probably knows him. Leon probably knows him. I don't know if either of them are here. But he got a book that he wrote. Well, it was written with someone. And it's on the New York Times bestseller list. And he's like, what? What? Are you joking? But I just have to put up with that. I just have to put up with it. But when you're sort of 16, 15, 16, 17, it's hard to put up with the realities of the unfairness of life. And again, this is what these tutors tap into. You know, if you can get a whole class of people really riled up, is it really fair that Elon Nazi salute Musk can fly around the world in his private jet with his 10 wives and 30 children, not having to worry about where the next meal's coming from, and your mum's a carer and she's caring for people that are younger than her? And is that really fair? No, well, that's what capitalism does. And they buy it, you know, because it ticks all their boxes. It allows them to be lazy. I'm not working. No, I'm not going to get a fucking job. No, why would I support the ruling classes? I'm not going to do that. No, I'm a revolutionary. And I say that because I said it. I said that as a young man. I mean, I was selling drugs. I was selling, you know, I was a capitalist, but that's drugs. That's different. Yeah, it ruins lives. And it's lazy because they come to you. You just sit there. And you just sell for, well, I don't need to explain what selling drugs involves, but, you know, they can easily appeal to emotions because teenagers are an absolute mess of emotions. They're a mess of emotions. They're a mess of identity and communist ideology, not science, communist, the artificial relationship with the real conditions of production is like a sponge in these people. And it's just red. No, sorry, I've got that around the wrong way. You can throw it at these people and they're like sponges for it. It ticks all their boxes. You know, I don't have to get a job. Yeah, I can be angry. You know, the angry young man sort of stereotype or virtually archetype. Yeah, you're damn right I'm fucking angry. Yeah, I will smash a window. Yeah, I've done it myself. I've walked home from boozers when I was a kid and just put a brick through a window. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, that's not really revolutionary. I mean, I don't need to tell you that, but I can justify it as that. But what it actually is me not being mature. It's just me being immature and unable to deal with my emotions, unable to deal with my own sense of failure, unable to deal with my massive ego and tiny sense of self-esteem. And all of those things, that you know, when we see all these people, there's a reason they've got green hair. There's a reason they got their bums pierced. There's a reason they dress up like fucking clowns. It's because they're weirdos. And I know that might sound a bit flippant, a little bit aloof, but they are. They didn't go through the sensible stages of development, which include things like acceptance, fundamental things like acceptance. What, life's not fair? Oh, well done. How old were you when you worked that one out? And so they end up as freaks, as outcasts. And who looks for freaks and outcasts? Who looks for weirdos? Who looks for vulnerable people, vulnerable, entitled people? Communists, Democrats, the usual suspects, because they're easily manipulated and malleable. Ultra mega Essex boy, big love to all. Oi, have you been here since the beginning? You dropped a message in when the old clock was still ticking down. How nice of you to have been on a stream. I'm assuming you are. Oh, by the way, when you recommended we didn't build our house, you were so right. The missus built all the footings, but we found a company, and out here it's about 17,000 English for what is essentially a mansion compared to what I'm used to in England. So yeah, good. That was a great call. Thanks for the donation, mate. Appreciated. And Pags has dropped a lady. He says, have some redistribution. I'll tell you what, Pags, thanks for that. And thank you, Mega Essex Boy. One of the biggest redistributions of wealth going on at the moment is OnlyFans. You've got like these 17-year-old girls earning like hundreds of millions a year. It's like, what the fuck is going on? You know what? I'm going to say this because I've thought about this. Because of the kind of person I was when I was a lot younger and I was a mess. I mean, you might feel I still am. There's still some messy parts to me for sure. But I was a real mess. But I reckon if OnlyFans was around when I was 18, I would well get my missus on it. I know the one as well. And she'd have done it. And I tell you what, I would have regretted that for the rest of my life. I just would have thought, that was a manipulative and horrible thing you done there while I'm on my private jet with Chardonnay. Nice one, Pags. We've got another one coming. 42 drops another lady. He says this. He says, meanwhile, our science teachers were explaining how physics and momentum helps you topple a police Land Rover. Schoolers went to shit now. I don't know what that means. Meanwhile, our science teachers were explaining how physics and momentum helps you to topple a police Land Rover. I get it. So you've made a little joke. It's not your best one, though, 42. Oh, speaking about that. What's that?
I don't think he's kidding. I think that's probably what they got taught in their school when he was at school.
Yeah, but for good reason, though. 42. Yeah. No, I think he's joking. I think he's joking. Hang on. Oh, no, you're right. Our science teachers were. It's because he's put where. It's because he can't speak English. He can't write it. Fucking pain in the ass, to be honest with you. Okay, now I get it. Yeah. I get it now, 42. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. I've just thought on the back of 42's comment, it's the Tommy Robinson thing in London tomorrow, isn't it? Anyone here going? Let me know in the chat if you're going to that tomorrow. I know a lot of people don't like Tommy Robinson, but I actually think he's part of this. I think he's part of the stairway to something that does save Western Europe. I think he's one of the steps to get there. You know, you don't get radical change overnight. Very rarely historically has that happened. But Tommy Robbins said he's expecting about 1 million, but with all these protests going on, with all these other things that have happened in the news, with Charlie Kirk yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get double that. Let me know in the chat what you think about tomorrow, what you think is going to happen, numbers do you support?
The other side is organising big time.
Well, Tommy Robinson's told everyone not to wear face masks, and if they do, they'll be banned, because he says that way it stops the old Bill, you know, getting in with his lot, with their faces covered, start causing trouble, and then everyone joins in and helps them. Let me know in the chat if you're going, if you're thinking about going, if you think it's a lot of rubbish, or anything. Packer, if you see any interesting ones, let us know, and I'll put them up on the screen. But yeah, that's tomorrow. I'm going to be keeping a firm eye on my computer.
Toffee's going because Tommy owes him a score for a grab of cat.
I'm going because Tommy owes me. It could be Pizzle. Hello, James. How are you, mate? Good to see you. Depends on the weather. The classic English resistance. LC350 thinks it's a good shout. Hello, Grego. How are you, mucker? Tommy's going to ban free speech at a free speech march. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure there's something behind it. Anyway, let's roll on with this because where are we? I've done 2 hours now. We'll do another 30 minutes because I think we get to some of the I haven't seen half of what we've looked at, but I have seen some other clips, and I know there's some lunatics coming your way very shortly. Here we go.
That is an element of Marx that's kind of interesting.
People, if you don't know this geezer's channel, Dad Saves America, I really recommend it. I know I've kept interrupting a lot, but I have to, because if he sees this video and I just use it as content, he'll probably put a claim in, because that's just me watching his content. Whereas if he sees me engaging, I think he's a fair enough geezer to think, no, that's what YouTube's about. That's why Warren Smith probably hasn't done me up, because I've done plenty of his videos. Anyway, let's see what these commies, see what else these commies are.
And also kind of weirdly contradictory, because if you have this system that unleashes all this prosperity and produces a post-scarcity world, why exactly would you want to trash it in favor of some Borg utopia? That part's a little less clear, but it's his Hegelian March of History metaphysical stuff that's going on there. I think one of the reasons why
I'm going to take this back a bit because it sounds like it's about to go on a good rant, but 42, that's pretty much my stance on it as well. It's not about Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon. It's about getting people together, and 90% of those are going for the right reasons. I absolutely agree with you, and that's why if I was there, I would go. I'll tell you what, I went to one of Tommy Robinson's ones once, and I got contacted afterwards by this bloke who was a professional photographer, and he said, I watch your channel. He said, give us your email. He said, I took a couple of photos of you, and I got these really nice photos of a professional photographer of me with me hat with, you know, the old deer hunter, deer stalker. You know, lovely photos. I'll dig them out. I'll show them on the next stream. Yeah, what a treat that was, having some professional shots taken. You know what? You say that. Right, here's a funny one. I've got a weird history with Lucy Brown. I think it started, I ripped apart a Medium article about a girl who went round Paul Joseph Watson's house. And she was going, I thought I was like a movie star. It was wild. I was excited. But then apparently he took advantage of her and all that. And it was ridiculous. But I didn't know that she wrote it. Now, she may not have. But a few people told me afterwards and during the stream, you do realise Lucy Brown wrote this. And I saw what happened to Lucy Brown, how she got manipulated and used by various different people for various different reasons, and I thought she'd been treated pretty badly. And I'll say now that if I knew she'd written that article, I wouldn't have made a video about it, because I think she'd had enough grief. I think her art has always been in the right place. I think I think her intentions are good and always have been. I wrote to her about a year after that Medium article and said, would you like to come on my channel? I said, now the smoke's kind of cleared. Would you like to come on my channel for a chat? And she got back to me and she said, I'd rather be dead. And so I was like, I didn't reply. I thought, oh, okay. But then she put a video up on X and she said, here's a video I put up on X. Dangerfield copied it. or something like that. And I said to her, actually, I didn't. That was Daughter of Albion. She just took my voice off of one of my streams and put it over some images for a birthday present, which is what was actually happened. And she said, oh, all right, they're not a problem anyway. And then she followed me. So I might see if I can hit her up and get her on here, because I think she's got a very interesting story to tell. What's the chat's understanding of Lucy Brown? Because I think she's an interesting character, without a doubt. I mean, for a young woman, she's certainly been
She's
through a
the
lot.
kind of drama girl, isn't she?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's all I know about her.
All right, let's get back to. Hang on, let me just check these. All right, here we go. Oh, I miss her as well, Anglo. To this day, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. She just stopped talking to me. That was it. We got on great. I thought she was a great friend, and she just won't speak to me. Yeah, who knows? Matt Zucker's on the phone. She's got a book, Hate Club. Oh, that's interesting. I'll have a look for that. JP says what he feels. Yeah, she was good stuff. I really liked Daughter of Albion. Well, I think that if I had to make this, might sound a bit. I might be being a bit nasty to DOA here, but I think a geezer appeared on the scene and he went, "Yeah, you're a bit too close to that Dangerfield character, always streaming with him and giggling with him." And you know, I understand in relationships sometimes you have to do what you're fucking told. Anyway, here we go. Roll VT.
Hegelian March of History, metaphysical stuff that's going on there. I think one of the reasons...
I've never seen her, Pizzle. I've never seen her.
Why this ideology and this view on the part of these young people in this debate, if you can call it a debate, is the way it is because they reject the idea that we are adaptable. They wouldn't see it that way, but that's how I see it. They consider the human animal to have essentially immovable intrinsic motivation, and therefore the sort of carrots and sticks of trucking and bartering in a free enterprise system where, oh, if I get a bonus if I work harder, if I am more diligent and put my nose to the grindstone, I will make more money. And in fact, the prospect of making more money if I do that leads me to do it, incentives, they just reject that. They think we don't need material incentives. They think incentives don't matter that much. The very same people will...
And there you go. And that is really at the heart of it. And I think that's what the premise was that he cut out at the beginning of this, that capitalism works because it incentivizes people. And these anti-capitalists who so far have all actually been communists don't believe in incentives. It's further than that. Not only do they not believe in them, they don't think they should have them. They think they should just get stuff for free.
We should tax the oil companies and tax the vices of our society and use taxation.
Right. I'll wrap this up here because I keep interrupting this bloke, and I really want you to hear this stuff because he's an interesting bloke. I spoke to Barclay and I said, Barclay, Daughter of Albion won't reply. This was about 4 years ago since I spoke to her. I said she won't reply to any of my texts or emails or anything. And he went, you know what she's like. And I said, well, can you just ask her why? And then he got back to me and he said, so she'd replied to him that night. She said, oh, you know what I'm like. I'm a bit dizzy or something like that. And I thought, well, she can reply to him. Why can't she reply to me? So fuck knows. But I haven't got a bad word to say about her. She done loads of streams with me, and they were really good fun. And I think we done a load throughout the COVID times as well, if I remember rightly.
And in fact, the prospect of making more money if I do that leads me to do it. Incentives, they just reject that. They think we don't need material incentives. They think incentives don't matter that much. The very same people will say we should tax the oil companies and tax the vices of our society and use taxation to reduce behaviors we don't like, which means incentives actually matter. So the incentives only matter when it's disincentivizing bad.
Another internal contradiction of this ridiculous ideology.
Things through taxation. When we tax things like, I don't know, income and savings and investment, that won't reduce work and entrepreneurship and productivity.
Yeah, so I think that humans inherently want to be meaningful. They want.
I'm not as handsome as I once was, but I'm glad I never looked as bad as this fella. I'm sorry, I know it's a cheap dig, but he's a strange looking fella. And when you look that strange with a beard, you've got to ask what you're willing to sacrifice. You know, what if you're prepared to look that weird with that beard, what is he using it to cover up? I mean, is he one of those people who just hasn't got a chin, so he's bearded it out? I don't know, but it's a strange look.
To contribute to their communities, they want to contribute to society. When you look at depression rates, oftentimes it's people who aren't able to do anything besides laying in their bed and basically barely taking care of themselves.
He's making a very interesting point, and one that he doesn't realize deeply undermines his worldview, because programs like Social Security Disability produce learned helplessness and misery by disincentivizing work.
So I think that it's just a human intrinsic value to want to bring value to their community or grander society. Okay, so I don't think that it has to be through scarcity alone that scares people into working.
Okay, so I think the issue is the framing of incentive here. Incentive doesn't disappear in a socialist or a communist society. It just changes and evolves. So we see in capitalism, the incentive is obviously monetary gain, maybe even collecting capital itself through land ownership. In a communist or a socialist country, you would see incentive would just evolve into, I know it's a vague term, but the common good.
And there you go. Look, it's just dreaming. So rather than incentives, as in if you work harder and you work more, you get more and you can achieve more. And that's not just physical labor, that's also intellectual labor, learning, reading. It's also developing your skills. But she makes that sudden jump. Well, it's not, you know, in communism, it's not, we don't need those incentives because we've got incentives for the common good. Well, that assumes that everyone's going to work the same amount. And again, we're not all created equal. How do you divide society up like that? If you're out in those fields, and it's always agriculture, or even if you're in a factory making something, some people aren't going to work as hard as others, and you're going to get wind of that, and you're going to notice that. And so that idea of the common good it's so obvious that it's just going to crumble within about a week. You know, if you got a load of workers and said, right, you're not none of you are getting paid or anything, you're gonna, you own the factory, you own the means of production. At the end of the week, we'll divide up the food and you can all have the same amount of it. How many weeks do you think that would actually last before half of those people start talking to each other in the canteen going, have you noticed those three over there, they do fuck all? And at the end of the week, they're still getting the same as us. But it's just inevitable. It's inevitable. And it doesn't even have to be due to laziness. It could just be to not being as clever. It could be not being as strong, not being as tall, or in certain jobs, not being as small. You know, And the problem you get there with communism is you can't raise everyone up to the highest common denominator. So there's only one option. You have to bring everyone down to the lowest common denominator. So okay, so let's try all this for 6 months. After 6 months, this geezer here only managed to produce 10 kilos of grain. So that was the lowest amount anyone produced. So everyone has to produce the lowest amount. I mean, does that make sense to you? To equalize people, you can only take them down. You can't raise people to the highest common denominator. You have to lower them. And because that doesn't work, again, another reason on top of the other 50 why communism doesn't work.
You have an incentive to do your chores around your house because you don't want to live in a filthy house, right? That makes sense.
Right, hang on. We just need to clip back to the way this bloke is looking. Have a look at this ginger dreadlock virgin, right? Have a look at the way he's looking at her. His hippie commie heart would love to settle down in a VW Dormerville and just park up somewhere in California and sell little bracelets that they make in the morning while drinking their sweaty sock tea. Have a look at his boat race and you tell me whether, if your daughter came home with him, how long would he last in your house?
Just evolve into, I know it's a vague term, but the common good. You have an incentive to do your chores.
Oh, look. I love you. Look at that face. Look, I love you.
He's not coming in my house.
Good. Mick, fuck all. Nice one, Spanish. How are you, mate? Mick, fuck all. Look at him loving her, though. What'd you say, Picard?
I said he's not coming in my house.
He's not even getting through the door.
No, don't worry, he won't want to.
There you go.
Around your house because you don't want to live in a filthy house.
Oh, look how long even the director knew it was worth just sitting on him for this long. Oh, it's disgusting. Oh, yeah.
Right, that makes sense. It doesn't have to be just monetary.
Free to have your dreams be as
free, but that's why I'm anti-capitalist.
well, maybe you are.
That's why I'm anti-capitalist, because capitalism removes that choice. There is no real incentive of capitalism because the incentive is survival.
There's no incentive in capitalism is one of the most stupid things you could say, regardless of what you might think about any of the other aspects. One thing you can say for certain is capitalism incentivizes you. That's I mean, everything's up for debate, but that's you're gonna have to go some to. That's a solid argument that capitalism incentivizes work. I mean, everyone in this chat has experienced that incentive.
Get into communism, the incentive is for the common good.
I love that. The common good. The incentive is the common good. That is lovely. But in your daily life, you face a lot of choices. And those choices involve trade-offs between this or that. How am I going to spend my time? Which kind of career am I going to pursue? Which way am I going to do the thing to achieve my goal? And the incentive towards the common good offers no information about how to make any of these choices.
It's a really important point, and it locks in with the idea of not being able to, where he says information there, that sort of combines with the idea of not being able to value your resources. If you haven't got a free market, you haven't got anything to regulate value. And that's what he's pretty much saying that there, but in a different sort of context. You know, the idea of a common good, it lacks practical information with which you can make decisions. You know, what is the common good? This sort of ghostly kind of airy fairy idea that, oh, everyone just wants everyone to be all right. Yeah, but we need data. We need ways of working this out, measuring it, distributing it, redistributing it, counting it. The fundamental. Go on, Packer.
I was just sitting here thinking, yeah, they are Star Trek The Next Generation. And then you said we need data, and it just made me laugh.
There you go. Fair play. Here we go. But you get my point, though, people. He says, this idea of making choices, but if you've got no information, if you've got nothing, if you've got no idea of value and of resources, the common good is an abstraction of an abstraction. It's a guess. And quite frankly, I don't think you should run societies, violent revolutions as well, based on guesses.
The things that PBD didn't talk about at all, and that is fundamental to the mistake being made by the anti-capitalists and all anti-capitalists, is that the incentives of markets, namely the differences in the cost and the price.
There you go. Free markets regulate value, and that is, and he's going to go there now.
Markets, namely the differences in the cost and the price between doing X and Y, the price system, is an incentive. It is also information. I've talked about this before, but this is the most
I'm glad I'm not the only streamer that says I've talked about this before on every show.
Deep and profound reason why capitalism works. And I'm using capitalism here, but free enterprise, free exchange, private property, rule of law, contract.
Free markets.
Tracks, trade. These things work, and they unleash people's potential and productivity, in part because they transmit information. Price goes up. Oh, there is more demand for that.
There you go, the regulation of value. Whereas something like the common good, there's no information there. I'm just repeating myself, but you can see the point he's making, and it's spot on.
Wage goes up. Wow, that is a skill that is in demand. Wage goes down. I probably shouldn't do that because not as many people want it. Or there's a lot of people already trying to do that and willing to take lower and lower wages to do it. The price system is an information system. And one of the ways to break this down is to think about the small decisions you make in your life that involve differences in prices. That is the price system at work. And the incentive-disincentive here is not about some high-flying moral choice like the common good. It is just about trying to understand what to do.
Yeah, how much work do I have to do to get what I want? And if you haven't got that, I talked about it in terms of the state not knowing the value of their resources, including the value of their labor. But he's talking about it on an individual level. The common good is just airy-fairy nonsense. On a one-to-one level, if you haven't got free trade, if you haven't got markets, if you haven't got anything to regulate value, how the fuck do you organize anything? There's no information, which means there's no communication about it. It's like you might as well just be monkeys. Might as well just go and live in the jungle and throw shit at each other. Because, it's weird these people call themselves progressives.
In a complex world that is the world all of these people love. The world of modern technological health innovations that keep people alive. The world that enables this video to happen and fly across the internet in 4K. That world is built on trillions of decisions that cannot be motivated by the common good. And this is why the Soviet Union struggled so profoundly to function that without a price system, that they ended up importing Sears Roebuck catalogs in the 1940s and 50s just to try to guess at how much should stuff.
Did you hear what he actually just said? This going back to what I said about regulating value, not knowing the value of anything. I didn't know this. This is brand new to me. I can't say for sure it's true, but I trust this fella. He just said that the Soviet Union imported Sears catalogs from America almost as like a price list, because there was they had no information regarding exchange value. That is ridiculous. And we're talking about a state level here. You can imagine Trotsky, well, it was probably after Trotsky, but you can imagine Stalin, sitting there scratching their heads in the Kremlin and being like, why don't we get some catalogs in from America? He just said that. I mean, it might be a made up thing, but he seems to be on the ball, this fella. That's incredible.
Catalogs in the 1940s that they ended up importing Sears Roebuck catalogs in the 1940s and 50s just to try to guess at how much should stuff cost, because we don't know how to do it.
I mean, do you understand? Do you look at these two things together? These young people, pretty much all universities in the Western world are being taught this stuff. Not just people who are doing gender studies, cultural studies, modern dance studies. Whatever you do, you have to take classes in this stuff. Do you remember when I'd done that conversations with teens or whatever it was called, and they were studying things like economics and that, and they said they all had to do this sort. They had to do seminars on this sort of stuff. They're all being brainwashed with it. All the clubs are talking about it. All the little groups are talking about it. You've got that. You've got all these people in this room going, well, now communism, and yet the system they're defending not only has cost an estimated 300 million people starved, tortured, and murdered by their own people, but it's so ridiculous that they smuggled catalogs in from America to use as price lists to value their goods. These kids, and they're only kids, 18, 19, 20, whatever, but they have given their identity in a religious way. We could say they've handed their soul over to a belief system, to an ideology that imported catalogs to get an understanding of what they produce is worth. It's as ludicrous as it is frightening.
Do anything. That's why it was doomed to collapse. This is all high-flying moral gobbledygook, and it's secular, materialist, atheist moral gobbledygook at that. So it doesn't even have a metaphysical underpinning. Why should I even believe that all men are created equal if you don't believe they're created in the first place? But that's for another time. This part is also where this kind of conversation goes off the rails, because this is the most common rhetorical tactic that breaks our understanding.
All right, this will be the last one we watch, people, because my missus probably wants to get some sleep. It's 2:30 in the morning. Feel free to donate. You can use that QR code. That's the best one. I want to make a couple of little videos after this. But I don't know what this one will be, but this will be the last one we do. I'll put a link to the whole video in the chat. Check his channel out. There's some cracking videos on it. Next week, I'm going to do another live reaction stream. I might even do it Sunday, actually, to a Peter Boghossian conversation that I watched the other day that's fucking brilliant. So we've got another one of these coming up that I hope you'll enjoy. Cole, honestly, check out his channel. It's just a wealth of information, and some of it I checked out because I was like, no, that just can't be the case, and he hasn't come unstuck yet.
Ending of things.
And it's this idea that, profit incentives is the only thing that can make humans do things.
Nobody's claiming that. No economist claims that. Nobody thinks that profit and prices is the only way to get people to do things. Intrinsic motivation is, of course, real. We all know that. We all know that when we love what we're doing, we do more of it better, faster, and more joyfully. So believing in free enterprise is not the belief that we are all homo economicus and that we rationally calculate on the basis of marginal prices every single decision we make. It's that at the margin, we need a way to understand how to do more with less. An entire structure of decision-making is informed by the price system. But do you want to be a nurse or a psychologist or a teacher or work in the Lego design factory in Denmark or build software or build homes or lay concrete? Some of that is just intrinsic interest and desire and passion and all the things of humanity that are not the price system. This is straw manning, what she's doing right here.
Which has never been the case. Historically, it's not the case. Psychologically.
Historically, it's never been the case?
No.
What has been the case?
So we've seen.
What's been the incentive?
The incentive is intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic motivation?
Of course. Have you ever heard of intrinsic motivation?
Of course I have. So you think people going to go just do anything for no incentives?
The incentive is intrinsic, meaning passion, interest, and honing your skills.
Whether you get paid or not.
Intrinsic motivation is what causes things like technological development. Some of the greatest breakthroughs have been from people who are devoted in honing their skill.
So should they get paid for it?
I think that we shouldn't live in a system that privately owns the means of production.
So incredible. So she says all that, and he asks the only question worth asking: should we get paid for it? And she just goes somewhere else. Just look at that. Just that bit again, because that question is just a spanner in her works.
The greatest breakthroughs have been from people who are devoted in honing their skill.
So should they get paid for it?
I think that we shouldn't live in a system that privately owns.
Just carrying on with the monologues that she's had repeated to her for the last 10 years.
Owns the means of production.
At the end of the day, the fundamental economic arguments against this worldview is that we don't know how to coordinate in a complex society without an information system that responds in real time to our capacity, our needs, and our resources. We live in a world of scarcity. That's the facts. You cannot have a post-scarcity world in material reality. And if your philosophy is fundamentally materialist, the second you claim we can have a post-scarcity society, you're talking gobbledygook nonsense.
Which is why they're talking gobbledygook nonsense.
You are just in a world of incoherence. And if we have scarcity, which we all do, we need ways to know what is the right choice to make at any given time in an ever-changing world. That
based on information we've got through free exchange, trade, labor, and understanding the value of all of those things.
That is the information system of prices, profits, and losses. It is guideposts. It is a circulatory system that helps us navigate the world of scarcity. I can go on like this for hours, but at the end of the day, that is the fundamental functional argument for why capitalism, free enterprise works, delivers the kinds of results that are an empirical fact on the spectrum. As you get towards the freer market economies, which includes all of the West, including Scandinavia, including Denmark, including Sweden, they are mostly capitalist societies with private property, private businesses, stock markets, investment, etc. High incomes for the bottom 10th of the population. The poor do better in freer market societies. That is an empirical fact. And the closer you get to these people's vision, you get into hell. You don't even have to go all the way to true communism.
And it is hell. They've all been hell. All communist societies have been absolute hellscapes to live in.
You can just start to replace some of the key building blocks of a free enterprise system and society collapses. This is Argentina. This is Venezuela. This is, of course, North Korea.
I was in Venezuela just after Hugo Chavez got in power, and he put irrigation and what's the other one? where all your shit goes. He put all that in all the slums. He gave all the because when you fly into Caracas, it looks like a Paul Klee painting. It's all these tiny little squares, and there's about 15 miles of it all around the capital, and the capital's just all these massive, like, high-rise, huge buildings, and it's just a massive slum with a city in the middle. And by slum, I mean, you know, they've got nothing. They've got no water, nothing. And Hugo Chavez turns up in his full military uniform with his saber and his red military beret and his oxblood boots up to his knees. And he put irrigation and sewage works into all the slums, and they all voting for him. And it was all like, look, Hugo Chavez is the savior. Yet no one asked where he got all the money from for all this, to irrigate like half of the country, to put sewage works into half of the country. No one asked him where it come from. Well, it came from taxing the fuck out of everyone who fucked off. And then, well, we know where Venezuela is now. Venezuela is like one of the most oil-rich countries on the planet, and they still fucked it up. How do you become that skint? You know, they were raiding their zoos for food, and that isn't just a myth. That did happen because they ran out of food. They ran out of food. And that's not a surprise, because it's happened in every fucking time they've tried this nonsense. Drives me absolutely nuts.
The Soviet Union, Cuba, etc., etc. Pol Pot, Maoist China. These are murderous.
You know, you've really got to go some to have your nation essentially floating on oil to be eating your zoo animals. You need an economic system that is so bad it can turn you from somewhere like Saudi Arabia to eating your zoo animals. It's got to be so bad. And weirdly enough, it was communism, and it managed it. It pulled it off.
Nightmare hellholes, because when you don't have the profit system and you have centralized power, you get a horrible ratchet effect combination of collapse and failure, and then scapegoating, and then strongman government. It happens every single time. It's been tried on every continent, in every...
And that is what happened with Hugo Chavez's government. They ended up, quelle surprise, they ended up having to start telling people what to do, shut up or get shot, like everywhere else that tried it.
Creed.
Weirdly, they didn't manage to have that transitional period to a stateless nation. No, what a surprise.
With multiple races, multiple time periods, every time it's the same. The fact that semi-educated people still think this is worth pursuing means our education systems in the West are a laughingstock and a disaster. We can sit here.
This will be the end of it, but I want you to listen to what he said. It's only that last bit again, but listen to what he says, because it's key. Not only your Chairman Maos, your Stalins and your Lenins and your Pol Pots, but also those places like Venezuela, like Argentina, that, well, we'll just try a little bit of it. We'll just, you hear people always go, well, the Nordic countries are essentially socialist. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not at all. Not at all. It's also the countries that just sort of, dip their toe in the sort of Commie river of blood, so to speak. And listen to what he says. The fact that the education systems, the universities and the schools that have got hold of our kids are still teaching this nonsense. It's a fucking mess. And Lord knows where it's going to go. I mean, we've seen what's happened in the UK. We've seen what's happened when the media, the police, the social services all kept their mouths shut when what was going on in Rotherham and Bradford and God knows Telford and all that lot. You know, that's part of the same thing. It's part of that keep it down, because this project we've got going on needs to work. And it's already failing, but you don't get a chance to say that, which happened in the Soviet Union, which happened in Mao's China, which happened in Cambodia. You can't talk about it. Look what's happening in England. Look at the amount of people getting locked up for talking. They don't like it. Charlie Kirk. And you can't talk about it because it's so fucking obvious. Listen, just listen to this last bit again because it's key, and then I'll drop it out.
Of collapse and failure, and Cuba, etc. Of course, some of the key building blocks of a
right. Yeah, we'll take it from here. I will not interrupt it. I promise.
Vision. You get into hell. You don't even have to go all the way to true communism. You can just start to replace some of the key building blocks of a free enterprise system, and society collapses. This is Argentina. This is Venezuela. This is, of course, North Korea, the Soviet Union, Cuba, etc., etc. Pol Pot, Maoist China. These are murderous nightmare hellholes, because when you don't have the profit system and you have centralized power, you get a horrible ratchet effect combination of collapse and failure, and then scapegoating, and then strongman government. It happens every single time. It's been tried on every continent, in every creed, with multiple races, multiple time periods. Every time it's the same. The fact that semi-educated people still think this is worth pursuing means our education systems in the West are a laughingstock and a disaster. We can sit here in 2025, having watched murder in the 20th century on a mass scale by people like Mao Zedong, and be told on YouTube videos that China's real success was because of communism.
I would argue.
There you go. I think we'll stop it there. Packer, what do you make of all that?
They were quite tiresome, weren't they, them kids?
It's terrifying, really, because I don't think they're idiots. I just think I think they trust their lecturers. They trust the institutions. And
well, I wonder, like, what goes through that girl's head when he said to her that they deserve to get paid then for, you know, all this innovation they've done and all these.
Well, they're taught not to engage in actual debates because, like you said, just carry on talking about something else.
Yeah. I don't know. Did they just not think critically? Because like that I would hear that and my brain would go, "That's a good point."
Yeah, but they come to these arguments in bad faith. They will be taught, and I know this because I've been there, they will be taught that, yes, it's not a perfect system. So when people say things like, well, who's going to clean up the toilets in the old people's home in communism? Which is a fair question. I used to get asked that. You know, who's going to get the nice job of like looking after the National Gallery?
I'll tell you this for nothing. There ain't enough people in the world want to be carers.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got some other people who are wiping the asses of people who don't even know what their names are. Who's going to do that? How are you going to distribute that? So they know that it's an imperfect system, but they're taught that it's not a question of answering difficult questions. It's a question of we need to give it a go. Because look where we are now. You know, look, there's people with millions, billions of dollars, and there's kids in countries in the third world who can't afford to eat. Well, all communism's going to do is turn the whole world into a place that can't eat. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you know, there is an element of me that finds it amusing because it's so ridiculous, but it is also absolutely terrifying. because how many of these people are there? How many of these students are coming out of these institutions? And the West, this could be the start of the fall of the West.
Well, tomorrow will be interesting in London, at the very least, won't it?
Okay.
The march. We'll see how many people come out on each side tomorrow, won't we?
Yeah, that I think they're going to get a lot more numbers than they planned for, to be honest with you. All right, Packer, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you in a minute, mate.
Okie doke. Cheers, all. Cheers, Scrubs.
Nice one, mate. Ta-da. Give Packer some love in the chat, people. He sat through 2 3/4 hours of me and Dad Saves America gabbing about communism, and he done it. And I say it every week, but without him there, it's really hard for me these days. If you get into conversation with someone who's a communist, ask them basic questions. Don't let them drive you. Don't let them direct the argument down roads that they've rehearsed answers, rants, because a rant is a powerful thing. If you rant at someone and get all passionate about it and start talking about individual stories of girls who had their feet cut off because the dad didn't make enough rubber that week, it's quite a powerful thing, and it kind of makes you go, yeah, I guess so. Just listen to it, but just ask basic questions like, well, who's gonna do the shitty jobs? How are you going to without incentives? How are you going to incentivize people to go down, and dangerous jobs? If you're all getting the same out of it, are you going to really run into a building that's on fire to pull people out if you've got like 4 kids of your own? Or are you going to opt for the job where you go fishing? And I'm not talking about deep sea lobster fishing. I'm just talking about just a rod and a line, catch a couple of bit of fly fishing, catch a couple of trout for the village. I want to thank Packer. I want to thank everyone who donated. And as usual, most of all, I want to thank everyone in the chat. We've had about 90 people here for the duration, which is lovely. And you've all been engaging. I have been reading as many of the comments as I can. Just one little thing before we go. If you've been investing over the last few years since I talked about it and introduced a lot of people to it, keep an eye out. Do a lot of research, because from where I'm sitting, we may enter a bear market in the next month or two. Now, a bear market, if you're investing in index funds, the bear market can take 20-30% of your money out of your fund, like in a matter of days. You're just like, where's all my money gone? And what a lot of retail investors do is they see it going down and they think, fuck it, I'll sell it. So what they've done is bought at a high price and sold as it's going down. But bear markets usually last 5 to 10, sometimes 15 months, whereas bull markets tend to last 5 to 10 years. So, and also bull markets come after bear markets. So it all plummets, which is actually a buying opportunity, and then it shoots up and it keeps going up for years and years and years. Don't take my word for it. Go and do some due diligence. Google something like historical chart of bear and bull markets, and you'll see it goes up to all-time highs, and then it drops, and then for a few months it stays sort of low or gets a bit lower, and then it goes up to all-time highs again, higher than the previous all-time highs, and then drops. And Wall Street and the mainstream media, they're the people saying that they will be trying to scare you deliberately. they'll be saying, well, retail investors are going to lose a lot of money in this bear market. You know, stocks are going to be going down 20, 30, 40%. This is almost a crash, and it could be a crash. But if you're a long-term investor, you can cope with that. Just take your emotions out of it. And then when that bear market's over, it all goes back up to all-time highs, bigger than the first. I'm not a professional. Don't take this as investing advice. Do your due diligence, but go and have a look. If you have invested, go and have a look at the history and the length of bull markets and bear markets and how long they last and what happens at the end of each of them. That's quite important. Okay, thank you very much. I'm spending the evening tomorrow with my missus. I might do a stream Sunday. It'll be an honour to have you here. Oh, someone else just dropped a little sneaky donation in. Nice one, Grego. Little $4.99. That's a price you're naughty TT. Nice one. I am going to play a bit of music now. I will be putting your comments on the screen. Enjoy your weekend. I probably will see you Sunday, actually. If I don't, I'll do one of the members-only chat things. I might do one of them as well. So look out, members, for notifications, because I didn't do one of them this week because it's been an hard week at work. But my voice is going. That's 3 hours on a Friday night. It's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. It's time for me to lay down with my girlfriend, who I love very much. And she's sitting there. She's not too happy with me. Look after yourselves, people. This is a piece of music by a man the OG Scrubs know and love as the Bally G. Oh my God, what the fuck has happened? I'm going to have to... Can you tell me in the chat if you can see and hear this? Hang on, that can't be right. Screen layout, press Shift and 6. Shift and 6. Done nothing. Done absolutely nothing. If you could see my screen now, it's like a Spectrum game that's crashed. Oh, man. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. Hang on a minute. Hang on. Packers dropped a last-minute donation in as well, but I can't read it. Hang on. I'm going to have to put it on my other monitor because it's all gone wrong. Packer says, cheers, Chris. Thanks for having me. Easiest job on earth. There you go. It's for the common good, Packer. Oh, you're over there, aren't you? Nice one, Packer. I'll talk to you in a minute if you're still about. Anyway, nice one, mate. Hang on. Oh, no, we're good. Right. Hopefully I can get this done. That's the one I wanted. There you go. Cheers, Packer. Here we go, people. Bally G, Paul Mumford, Deep Water. But I can't play it because I need to put it on the... You shouldn't be able to see me on the screen.
Everyone knows I'm gonna be the first man down. All my friends are sick of having me around. Nobody wants to give a buddy one last break. Can't go on, I've taken all a man can take. Life is a curse, it only gets worse, and the world don't watch you drown. Maybe my mind will fail to ever find the point. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna make my grave.
Nice one, Emma. That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you for the donation.
I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna lay my head on the riverbed. Looking back, I rejected every place I stayed. A woman says I'm lying in the bed I've made. She says warriors don't give up before the war begins. So I get high to justify the mess I'm in. People get mad and people get sad, but at least they have a cause. I struggle to feel emotion I could really trust. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna make my grave underneath the wave. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna lay my head on the riverbed. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna make my grave underneath the wave. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna lay my head on the riverbed. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna make my grave underneath the wave. I'm going deep, deep down underwater. Gonna lay my head.
Right, hang on. Pags is saying check my Entropole. There's nothing there yet. Blogs has said he's been ranting on entropy, but Blogs, I don't have the chat on entropy showing. Only the chat and donations. That's probably why I haven't seen it. So, but Pags, I don't know why that hasn't come through. If it doesn't, unless you're joking, I don't know. I will. I'll talk to him and get that back to you. No, don't worry, it won't be. Well, it might be actually because of the time difference. Right, look after yourself, people. I've got to go. I can barely talk. I can barely keep my eyes open, and my missus wants to get some sleep. Bless you all. Love you all. Look after yourself, Spanish. Just because you're there at the bottom there. Ta-ta. And I can't. Am I even on the screen? I don't even know. I can't put myself. Yes, love. Yeah, I love you too, but I can't seem to get myself on the. Can you see me? I don't know if people can even see me. Let's try that one. Yeah, there you go. Hello. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bless you all. Look after yourselves. Look after your family and tell them that you love them because we do often forget. Jed is on the firm. Nice one. Is that the same Jed as Jed? Is that you, Jed? Oh, no, Jed's Jedi. I don't know what's going on anymore. They keep changing names. I don't know what's happening. That's nice of you, though, mate. Appreciated. Right, I'll probably see some of you Sunday. Look after yourselves and ta-ta. Hoita.